Chapter 1040. If Thea used the stranger coin at this time, or extracted the power from the shadow of the first, and added these powers to herself, she would be able to further compress the world, but she gave up. This was her world, and she didn't want outsiders to touch it. Once the power of these two big bosses entered, even if it was only a trace of power, it would cause countless problems. She indulged the small part of the world's will and the resentful natives for balance. No matter what trouble they caused, it was a controllable factor, and the two big bosses were basically uncontrollable. This was like the introduction of venture capital in the development stage of a company. It was best to avoid it. There were too many cases of turtle doves occupying a magpie's nest. If she chose face before, then she chose substance at this time. That's it. Wiping the sweat from her forehead, Thea said to herself. From a newbie to today, her achievements were enough to be proud of. She knew when to stop, and she knew that she could only do great things with her ability. With a light flick of her finger, a trace of the world's will was separated and thrown into the Wall of Origin. The Wall of Origin connected all universes, parallel universes, independent universes, and all fantasy universes. She wouldn't deliberately go to Wantian to calculate the frequency of the universe's oscillation, and then forcibly build an Earth 53. There was no need at all. Thea's universe was definitely an independent universe, but the rules, building framework, and so on were all established on the basis of the existing DC world. Her universe was naturally one of them, and it was normal to report on the Wall of Origin. After a careful check, confirming that there were no omissions and that she had recovered to her best state, Thea secretly sighed in relief and directly released the suppression. The world that was compressed to the size of a tennis ball was suddenly released, and the external pressure disappeared, and she finally began the final evolution. There was an earth-shattering explosion in the soundless world, but unfortunately, sound didn't spread here, and Thea didn't have time to look at the sound and light effects. Her will began a different journey with the explosion of the world. In the chaos, between the known and the unknown, the core of the world was spinning at a high speed, faster than the concept of speed itself. When it accelerated to the limit, it directly surpassed time, and the explosion began. Unparalleled energy poured out crazily, and Thea had to protect her will from being assimilated, and at the same time, observe the mystery. The creation of the world was the truth that Colonna had been tirelessly pursuing all his life. Thea felt that it would be a waste if she didn't see the secrets behind it for herself. The universe was not a grenade. It would not be destroyed with a bang. In an immeasurable amount of time, it had undergone countless changes. Various rules began to be completed. There were death, soul, courage, justice, and so on that Thea was very familiar with. There were also evil, violence, shadows, and so on. There were even many rules that she had never heard of before that appeared before her eyes. Thanks to the fact that she was the creator of the universe, the laws of death, souls, and emotions in this universe were very rich. Originally, this was a world dominated by the dead, but she still had the life equation, which leaked a little bit of her aura, allowing life and death to reach a delicate balance. The nature of the world had been improved by a large margin. After the laws were completed, the universe began to expand rapidly in the void. Real stars were born one after another, and then they merged into galaxies. They began to move slowly along their respective orbits, and the universe was truly born at this moment. She put on the white light ring, and casually found a pleasing planet. The life equation gave new life to the new species, and the white light provided energy. The first batch of life was born in her universe. They were like the little blue people, born with great strength and intelligence, and they would develop a very high level of civilization. However, the life left behind from the previous era would also begin to counterattack, and the war between the two sides would last for a very long time. A very thin and short girl appeared beside Thea. She knew that this was the watcher of her world. Every time a world was born, there would be a watcher. They would change with the world, and when the world was destroyed, they would also self-destruct. Thea did not pay attention to this watcher. Her universe was now a member of the regular army, and was no longer treated like a wild animal. Following the laws of the world and happily accepting enlistment and supervision naturally had its benefits. The development of the multiverse had its own inertia, and her universe would naturally be able to enjoy this benefit after joining in. It was probably equivalent to the universe's version of the heavenly axiom, where the surplus would be reduced to make up for the deficiency. Yes, her universe belonged to the deficiency category. After all, whether it was the universe or her own level, they were not enough, and for a very long time, they would have to rely on others to maintain the operation of the universe. The universe that developed first would lead her universe, which was behind, to gradually achieve common prosperity. There were many other benefits. In the future, the universe would be able to develop on its own, and whatever it lacked could be made up with the help of the multiverse laws, and she would not have to rack her brains to fix it. In fact, she was a little tired of wandering around this universe every day. Let the universe develop on its own. She stood calmly in the void for a long time, and countless insights surged into her heart. The veil of the entire world was completely unveiled in front of her. For the first time, Thea truly opened her eyes to this world. The laws covered every aspect, and every matter and every intelligent life was within the laws. They were moving slowly and steadily according to certain predetermined trajectories. Every time they left their predetermined trajectories, they would be pushed back by an invisible force. That was fate. The power of fate and the power of an object were completely identical. When an object's power exceeded that of fate, it would be free. Thea was like that in the past. However, some individuals were too strong, such as Darkseid and the Heavenly Father. The restraints of fate were terrifying, and they did not have much chance of transcending. It was relatively easy for the small ones, but difficult for the big ones. This was her observation of fate. Similarly, Thea also saw herself. There was a faint shadow around every life and every object. That was death. It was formless and incorporeal, but nothing could change this fact. She knew that she had reached the peak. Her black hair moved without wind, and her face was 1 or 2 years younger than before. However, the makeup around her eyes was a little heavy, and the punk outfit that symbolized death was automatically on her body. Anka's amulet shone with a different light around her neck. The first light ring, which represented the deity of emotions, fell off on its own. The ring seemed to want to escape, and Thea grabbed it without hesitation. Even if she could not use it, she could not let it escape. Following closely behind the ring, the soul deity position also jumped out. Something like leaving a way out so that we can see each other in the future, something like the Great Tao of 50, the Heavenly Tao of 49, the soul deity position. She did not believe in these theories. What was mine. Even if it was useless now, she could not let it go. She grabbed the deity of souls with her right hand. Chapter 1041. Wealth and trade were the most suitable for her. That was a deity seat that completely belonged to her. Now, it was rudely driven out. The 2 deity seats were like pitiful little pets, circling around her. Unfortunately, before they could make 2 rounds, they were pushed to the back by the death deity seat that was also driven out. Since they didn't run away, it saved her a lot of trouble. After all, she had painstakingly collected the 5 deity positions. It would be too much of a waste to just let them go. She would keep them by her side for now. With a thought, a very ordinary bracelet appeared on his right hand. There were 5 stones on it, and they were the 5 deity positions. Previously, she felt that it was troublesome. The deity of emotions had always been stored in the first light ring. Now that the world had no secrets in front of her, it was casually separated and hung on the bracelet. As for the ring, he crushed it and turned it into dust, leaving no trace behind. Her identity as a new god had completely become a thing of the past after she became a mage. From now on, she would no longer use things like magic or divine power. If one wanted to forcefully name it, then it could be said that she used the power of death. After leaving her own universe, Thea walked into the base of the Endless family. Fate, who was wearing a long robe and handcuffs, stood there quietly with a thick book in his hands. It was as if he had been waiting for her since ancient times. "Hello, Fate." Thea bowed respectfully. "Hello, Death." Fate returned the greeting. Thea, who could chat with anyone for a long time, didn't know what to say to her big brother. Fate seemed to know what she was thinking and said, "Death, do you know your duty?" When it came to this issue, Thea chuckled. Uncle Ben told Spider-Man that the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. This sentence can't be wrong. However, when one's ability reached her current level, there was nothing much to do. The fact that God turned into a dog and played around every day was a good example. When he was a superhero, he had a lot of trouble. When he became a new god, he had to fight evil every day. In comparison, it was much easier. At the level of the Endless Family, they were completely free. Nothing would happen. Fate's big brother was known to rule by doing nothing. Those who were in Fate, he would ignore them. Those who were not in Fate, congratulations. Now that you've transcended Fate, go do whatever you need to do. The death of the first Miss was slightly more troublesome. Everything was fine if she died normally, but if she wanted to escape death, she would have to do it herself. Usually, those who could escape death would have some tricks up their sleeves. Therefore, it was not without reason that she was ranked number 1 in the Endless Clan. It would not be appropriate to say that Fate did not have any daily tasks. Fate had to constantly check its books to prevent too many people from escaping from Fate, which would affect its future development. Thea was also speechless about death. In order to let her experience the taste of death, she had to become a mortal every 100 years. She had to live a mortal life for a day and die when the sun went down. What kind of existence are we now? I'm no longer a god, so what am I? Thea asked Fate. After mastering the life equation, Thea could feel that her life form had once again undergone earth-shaking changes. She was now no longer a mortal, nor a god, nor was she in the special form of the ghost eclipse. Fate replied, "It doesn't matter what we are. What matters is what you do. We exist in this world, but we also don't. We are unique individuals outside of time, space, and creation." Thea tilted her head and pondered. Did fate mean that they were outside of the 3 realms and outside of the 5 elements? She sat on the chair that belonged only to her. It felt strange that there were only the 2 of them in the spacious courtyard. She asked, "Where are the other siblings?" The moment the words left her mouth, the sense of disharmony grew even stronger. She and Fate were like the big brothers and sisters of an orphanage, followed by a bunch of naughty children with snot dripping from their noses. Our third brother is the Sandman. Thea nodded, indicating that she knew this name. As the second sister of the Endless Clan, you have to find the Sandman. This is your mission. Thea pointed at herself with her mouth agape. Isn't it your mission as the big brother to find your siblings? Are you trying to order me around just because I'm a strong laborer? I'm not going. She tilted her head and pretended that she did not hear Fate. Even though she did not say it out loud, her meaning was clear. I'm not going. I'll find you, and you'll find the Sandman. The Sandman will look for destruction. This is the tradition of our clan. Fate did not seem to mind at all. There's a connection between you and the Sandman. Fate flipped open his thick book. In 1916, the Brotherhood of the Ancient Secret Arts made a lot of preparations. They wanted to capture death. Ha, stupid. Thea snorted. What kind of brotherhood was this? A few sorcerers were probably at the level of Mr. E's cold flame curia. She did not need to think with her toes to know that it was impossible. You need to guide the Sandman onto his path. After that, it's up to him to develop. Fate even flipped his thick book over to Thea. She read it carefully and was a little speechless. It was full of tricks. A group of self-righteous sorcerers, for some reason, wanted to capture death as if they had lost their minds. However, death easily flashed by and threw the Sandman onto the book. After that, a touching story began. It must have been hard on Fate to come up with these stories. Do I just need to guide him? That's right. Sia thought about how she had been pulled in by Fate, and how she had been groomed like a sheep. She understood that this was probably the specialty of the Endless Family. Whether it was their job or finding their younger siblings, they were all unreliable. If you succeed, I'll find another one. Those who joined the family would be siblings. Those who did not were nothing. Fortunately, she only needed to find one. It was not too troublesome. Fate had found all the people who had broken away from the line of fate. After that, she needed to find the one who was the best at dreaming. It was a very nonsensical mission. After bidding farewell to Big Brother, she took the list and entered the dream world. This was a bizarre world. It was in the realm of gods like her underworld, new creation star, apocalypse star, heaven, and hell. It was just that Thea had never been here before. The Sandman and the dream world were both connected. The dream world was still an ownerless land. The Sandman would officially occupy it in the future, but not now. The dreamscape was considered normal, but the nightmares were in the worst possible state. Countless nightmares had formed there, with the deepest and most frightening part connecting to the dark multiverse and forming a passageway. Through the nightmares, the power of darkness was seeping incessantly into the multiverse. Fate had found the right person to be in charge of this. Following the path of fate, she identified the level of daydreaming of these people who had broken away from fate. The one who was the best at dreaming had the highest success rate. At least, that was what she thought. Chapter 1042. 10 minutes later, she gave up on the idea. It wasn't impossible to pick out the deepest and most artistic dream, but it would take too much time. All the dreams of intelligent life were connected here. It would take her 1,000 years to distinguish them one by one. There was no time to waste. She might as well carry on the tradition of the endless family and follow her feelings. After all, everything was arranged by fate. There was no north, south, east, or west in the dream. Illusions could be seen everywhere. The land, sea, and sky were randomly pieced together here. All kinds of colorful glass plates filled the entire space. Sia randomly pointed in a direction and walked for half a minute. She stopped and looked around for a while. Then, she selected the dream fragment that seemed to be the most active one in the fate list. Following the soul's guidance, she saw that it seemed to be a man. She didn't waste any time. "It's you." Without stopping, she came to England in 1916. It was the First World War. The British soldiers were fighting in the European battlefield. The long tug-of-war made the people unable to see hope. A large number of young soldiers left the country and social conflicts increased. All kinds of discontent arose. The ancient secret arts brotherhood surfaced at this time. The founder and organizer, Master Spellcaster Roderick Burgess, was preparing. He wanted to capture death because death had unparalleled power and eternal life. Thea smiled as she watched them prepare. She didn't use any invisibility magic. As long as she wanted, no one could see her. Death couldn't be seen. Invisibility was the most insignificant ability. After becoming death, her timeline was completely connected. She was the daughter of Malcolm and Moira. At the same time, she saw the beginning of creation and the birth of the universe. She was independent of time, space, and creation. Just like how the universe's life and emotions could become the power of the Phoenix, if the entire DC world was considered as a whole, it also had its own timeline. Thea was currently on this timeline. This was also why this group of second-rate British mags knew of her existence. In this world's timeline, ancient books recorded her countless past. After all, she had to die once every 100 years, so there would be some records left behind. Thea calmly looked at the group of people who were busy. They were full of enthusiasm, as if invincible power and eternal life were at their fingertips. The busy group of people did not know that their captured target was right beside them. Some were drawing magic circles, and some were reciting prayers. Yes, this group of people was very talented. They thought that by saying a few nice words, they would be able to trick death over. Then, they smashed their cups as a signal and swarmed forward to catch death. After watching for half a minute, Thea understood their plan. She wanted to kill these arrogant bastards, but she had a mission to do, so she could only patiently watch their clumsy performance. The 13 mags were busy for the whole afternoon. After the sun had set, they finally began to pray. Needless to say, this prayer was somewhat effective. She didn't rely on her ears to hear it. Thea heard it on a certain level of her consciousness. In order to make them work harder, she gave a simple response. Just like the night of the soul, the candles that the mags had lit were all blown out by her. The group of people was overjoyed. Then, they began the blood sacrifice. After a while, Thea saw that the time was almost right. Her left index finger tapped lightly, and the sole imprint that was suspected to be a candidate for the Sandman was placed in the center of the magic circle. There's a response. That's great. A few of them were happily waiting for the pie to fall from the sky. Thea was also sitting on the side, waiting for the summons. The Sandman was called over, and she briefly told him about the things to take note of and fulfill her family responsibility. After that, she could go home and rest. Working so hard to create the world was still very tiring. Now, she just wanted to find a big bed and have a good sleep. However, things were far from that simple. Poof! Halfway through the summoning spell, a cloud of blood mist exploded from the inside out. Not to mention the Sandman, who was still alive, and the raging magic power didn't even leave a finger behind. He was completely blown into powder. The young lady was speechless. She waved her hand to stop the time. She walked out and checked the scene. In fact, there were problems in both aspects. The candidate for the Sandman that she chose was a little weak. He was in a sleeping state, and his spiritual power was unstable. He was hit by a powerful magic power and directly exploded. On the other hand, the summoning circle of these people was a little overbearing. Although they couldn't even summon a strand of Thea's hair, it was already a powerful magic circle to deal with the Sandman at this time. What should she do? Thea sighed. She knew that this mission was not so simple. It was not difficult to guess that when fate chose her, it was probably not smooth sailing. She could control what was within fate, but outside of fate, she could only try her luck. This was the only thing that could happen to her, but for Big Brother Fate, she probably didn't know how many candidates she was. The difference between her and them was that she had reached the end, but they didn't. The first candidate selection failed. She waved her hand to reset the timeline, and went to the dream again to search. It didn't take long. This time, she chose a guy who seemed to have a tough personality, and returned to 1916 again. The group of sorcerers repeated the process in front of her, as if they were putting on a show. It turned out that having a tough personality had nothing to do with magic. Another cloud of blood mist. Ouch! Thea felt a toothache, and her heart was full of helplessness. She restarted the timeline again, and then repeated the whole process over and over again like a third-rate director. The candidates were in a state of joy, and some were in a state of sorrow. Young people, old people, disabled people, and people with superpowers. In fact, there weren't many who had transcended fate, but there weren't few either. After the 17th failure, she began to change the direction of the selection. She returned to half a year earlier, and artificially lowered the strength of the magic circle during the design stage. But it couldn't be too weak. If it was too weak, it wouldn't be able to connect to the dream, and this show wouldn't be able to continue. After 3 adjustments, she finally came up with a plan that could barely summon, and at the same time, had the least burden on the person being summoned. However, she still failed, and failed, and failed. She watched as the group of sorcerers excitedly captured death. Once they started the show, they couldn't stop. At first, she was happy watching it, but after watching it 61 times in a row, anyone would get sick of it. Fortunately, before she completely lost her patience, she succeeded on the 76th or 77th try. This guy is death. Why is it a man? He looks a little weak. One of the sorcerers asked the leader of the Brotherhood. Chapter 1043. Thea heard this in her half-asleep state and was overjoyed. She immediately stopped the timeline. The surrounding mags were all overjoyed. Only the leader heard his subordinate's words and was overjoyed with a hint of curiosity. When time stopped, he was looking at the blurry figure in the middle of the blood-red formation. This was a somewhat thin young man. He had been transferred from his home through a dream, and then crossed the distance of time and space to be summoned here. It had to be said that he was a candidate with both luck and strength. Without a word, Thea dragged the young man to the Boundless clan. She blabbered on, basically repeating what fate had told her back then. It was not that she did not love her younger siblings, but that passing the preliminaries was just the beginning. There was still a long way to go. If one of them died, she would have to choose another. If she were to express her love for her younger siblings every time, she would be too emotional. Thea noticed the confused look on the young man's face after she finished speaking. She knew that he did not listen to her. Actually, It was understandable. Anyone who was sleeping peacefully at home and then being dragged out for a walk and told that they were someone from the Boundless clan would not be able to accept such a twist. Thea had accepted it very quickly. Firstly, it was because she was very clear-headed. Secondly, it was because she knew about the Boundless clan. She had read through the Sandman's test from beginning to end. Or rather, she had studied it several times while waiting for the 77 summons. To be honest, passing the test step by step was like passing a game. It was not too difficult. It was much easier than her, who had to cross a single plank bridge with thousands of people. The test was simple, so the rewards were naturally less. In the end, the Sandman's combat power was far inferior to hers. At best, he was at the peak of the multiverse. He would never reach the level of omnipotence like her and Fate. However, this was all relative. Her starting point was much higher than this young man's. She was one of the best among the new gods. She had to deal with ruthless people like the Black Death Emperor and Darkseid. The young man in front of her was at most a little more active. He was usually kept in a mental hospital for research. He had to deal with a bunch of second-rate English sorcerers and Constantine. That's right, the Constantine that Thea knew. After that, according to the script, the Sandman, the trip to Hell, and the trip to Gotham. Thea would also appear here, but from her point of view, it was more like a cut scene. In short, there were too many things to complain about in Fate's script. Many things could not be avoided from Thea. She had a lot of lines in this movie. Compared to her solo role in Fate's movie, she was definitely an important character in Sandman's movie. "Do you understand what I'm saying?" she asked. The young man looked at her in surprise. "All right, I'll take it that you understand." Thea snapped her fingers and sent him back to the summoning circle. He had plenty of time to think about this. According to the script, he would be studied by the sorcerers for the next 70 years. This was enough time for him to accept reality. She left the Sandman reserve to ponder. If this guy could reach the end, then it would be good. If not, then she would choose another one. She changed back into her clothes, activated a teleportation spell, and went home. She did not return to Earth directly. Instead, she went to the Wall of Origin. As the pinnacle of the world, she could finally take a look at the world without worry. She walked around the perimeter of the wall, looking at the many powerful figures stuck to the wall. After flying for a long time, she finally found her target. Yuka Khan, the fierce new god, was also stuck to the wall. In his era, even Darkseid did not dare to look at his back. Now, he was like a sculpture, quietly hanging on the wall. His life force was fused with the wall, and the latecomers would only see his ferocious face and a small part of his body. He was indeed powerful. Thea could not help but sigh. This guy had actually crossed the threshold of the multiverse, but he was not omnipotent. In fantasy terms, he was half omnipotent. Fire, earth, time, space, and magic. Yes, this guy had a divine seat of magic. Thea had been thinking about this divine seat for a long time, but unfortunately, she could not find any clues. Now, the truth was out. This guy was the one who had hung it on the wall. On the wall and inside the wall were two different concepts. For the entire world, the concept of magic had mostly disappeared. This was also the main reason why the amount of magic in the universe had greatly decreased, and the main reason why the magic of intelligent life had regressed. The divine seats were in conflict with each other, and Yuka Khan did not care about his own balance. He wanted to be invincible. As long as the divine seat was strong enough and could provide him with power, he wanted it. The divine seat drove him crazy, and in the end, he was stuck to the wall. Thea could only sigh. This guy was the end of the new god. Put him down. There was no need for the two of them to fight. She would leave him for future generations to see. She resolved her doubts and stepped out to return to Earth. Earth was still the same. It was always noisy. The bad guys were defeated, the heroes were schemed against, and eventually killed. The citizens went about their daily lives as usual. The lively social organizations were still selling detergent, and the counselors were still saying things that they did not believe. Everything was so contradictory, so natural. Although there were a lot of problems that could not be solved, this place made Thea feel very warm. This was her home. Diana was still sorting out the internal problems of the new planet. Her mother and brother were also busy with their own things. Thea walked and walked to Gotham. She ignored the mechanism at the door and walked into the Batcave easily. Batman was now working as a blacksmith, a job with a lot of prospects. He made a metal frame that looked like torture to Thea. It was made of countless wires and metal materials, and there was a seat in the middle for people to sit. Thea looked at it casually and did not say much. "Are you okay?" Batman put down the welding torch in his hand and asked curiously, "You don't seem to be in a good condition." Thea was a little curious. "Is it that obvious? Even you can tell? You look very relaxed, unlike before, when you were always worried." Batman analyzed on his own. Thea did not explain. Her strength had finally reached its peak, and no one could threaten her anymore. She did feel relaxed, but there was no need to tell Batman these things. "It's a little lonely here." After a moment of silence, she said. The old butler was sick. Even the most elite agent in England could not resist the aging of the body. Even with the best medical conditions, the old butler did not have long to live. Damian and Raven went to the Teen Titans together. Barbara and Nightwing also had their own paths. They both left the Batcave. Chapter 1044. In the end, Batman did not accept Catwoman's love, and the two of them walked on different paths. Now, the huge Batcave was extremely gloomy, and he could only do his own things here alone. "Aren't you going to train a few more assistants?" "No, I'm already old." Thea was speechless. In her opinion, Batman could still live for a long time, but the specifics were not easy to explain. If an opportunity presented itself to you, would you be willing to become a god? She had wanted to ask this question since the first day she met Batman, but she was afraid that it would affect the future, so she did not ask. Gods? Those guys who attacked Aura? Not interested. Thea waved her hand. Don't be so hasty to refuse. Gods can know the answer to all the questions in the world. Haven't you been doing this for so many years? Even if you don't know it at the time, you'll have time to verify it later. If you can become a god, then the world can change according to your wishes. How about it? Are you tempted? Batman thought about it seriously. Won't it affect my personality? Look at me and Diana. Do we look like we'll be affected? This time, Batman thought for a longer time. My will is not as strong as yours. Thea almost laughed out loud. Batman actually admitted that his will was not strong. This sentence should be recorded. Bruce, you're a good person, but you're too paranoid. That's a god, not a brainwashing machine. You're still you. Remember my words. Soon, when the choice is placed in front of you, you must be calm, but you must also have some initiative. I've always wanted to say that you're not ordinary. Thea took out a bottle of beer from the space ring and gestured to him. Batman said that he did not drink. Thea did not think that such a self-disciplined person would make an exception for her. She took a sip. Do you need me to prepare any ceremony? Kneel on one knee? Do I have to change into a formal attire? He laughed at himself, but his facial expression was too stiff and looked very ugly. Thea stood up and patted him on the shoulder. Time is running out. When that moment comes, not only you, but also a few other people will have to make a choice. From my personal point of view, of course, I hope that you, my old friends, can seize this opportunity. If you insist on your duties and are unwilling to take this step, I have no objections. Batman sensed that something was wrong. Who else? What's your plan? I don't have a plan. I'm not the main character in this. You guys are. I'll help you set up the stage. After that, it's up to you to decide. Be prepared, the wheel of fate is coming. Thea's words came out of nowhere, and Batman frowned. Who are you going to deal with? Darkseid. It's related to him. Speaking of which, did you guess or analyze it? Thea wasn't prepared to ask for an answer, and neither was Batman. There's about a month left. I'll look for you then. With that, she left Gotham. Batman's life was unfortunate. He should have had a better ending. He shouldn't have died in bed, and he shouldn't have carried the burden of the dark multiverse and gradually lost himself in the darkness. That wasn't fair. The strongest mortal sounded powerful, but it was actually a tragedy. She couldn't do it in the past, but she could now. As long as Batman became a god, Thea could cut off his connection with the dark multiverse. However, becoming a god wasn't a blessing. To some, it was a responsibility. Thea wasn't prepared to let her family become a god. That was too tiring. The people of Star City had nothing to worry about. Although the Endless family was unreliable, they had a principle of treating their family well. Thea's family and friends would be blessed by fate. Although they wouldn't be able to pick up money every time they went out, they would be happy and healthy forever. She looked across the universe and saw the Apocalypse Star. A large cluster of death was entrenched here. All the signs pointed to one thing: Darkseid was about to die. Although the evil monarch was currently beating up the demons and drawing out more than half of the anti-life equation, leaving only a small tail in his body, Sia knew that he was about to die. There was a huge problem with the method that Michael taught her, and it couldn't be seen without reaching a certain level. The anti-monitoring of the near-death state was also tampered with in the equation. With the tacit agreement of several parties, it would be a miracle if Darkseid didn't die. Thea was also involved in this. She was the one who planned the anti-life equation, so it had to end in her hands. The death of a god in the multiverse was a perfect example of her existence. She didn't know how many of Darkseid's gods would die. This level of death would destroy the entire multiverse. Someone had to inherit his god position for the universe to stabilize. Batman, Superman, Fiora, and Death Knell were all candidates she could consider. While she was sitting on the grass, thinking, the female adjutant came over. "You called for me. Wait a moment. There are 2 more guests." Not long after, Superman and Supergirl flew over. Thea then told them her purpose. She pointed at Fiora and said, "I once owed Fiora a promise. Back then, I was weak. Now, I can finally do it. I called all of you here to ask for your opinions." Before they could ask, she revealed the secret. "I want to restore Krypton." 3 gasps were heard. "Really? Can you really restore Krypton?" Supergirl was the first to react. She asked in disbelief. Fiora was also shocked. She thought that she was going to be given a mission. She didn't expect it to be this. Superman, on the other hand, was much more rational. Would it cause a disaster in the universe? Would it hit the flowers and plants? All sorts of thoughts ran through his mind. "By the way, I can also revive Zod." "Clark Fiora? Fiora, what do you think?" This time, Superman reacted quickly. "Revive him. Killing him is my life's regret. It wasn't my intention." Fiora, on the other hand, was hesitant. After a long time, she slowly said, "The General's goal is to restore Krypton. If Krypton is restored, then his personal value is probably nothing. I don't know if I should." Supergirl patted her shoulder to comfort her. Thea raised 2 fingers. "Zod's matter isn't urgent. You can think about it slowly. I'll give you 2 choices. One is to send you back to the time before Krypton exploded. No matter who, what, or what the cause of the explosion was, I can solve it. I'll restore your bodies to their original state and erase your memories. Clark can grow up normally with his parents. Kara can continue her life on Krypton. The same goes for Fiora." Chapter 1045. Another option is to rebuild a new planet, New Krypton. Before the planet exploded, Brainiac took away a city of Kryptonians. There should be 100,000 of them left. I just found that out. We can save them and rebuild a planet that belongs to the Kryptonians. It's Kanda City. I know about it. I remember it. Supergirl was shocked. "It's Kanda. We went back to Kanda City 350,000 years ago to deal with Raoul. It was the cradle of the Kryptonian civilization. Fiora, Kara, Clark, you are all my friends. You don't have to agree. You can make your own decisions. I'll support you no matter what. Go back and think about it for a few days." Of course, such an important decision could not be made immediately. Thea left the 3 of them to think about it while she went back to sleep. She was tired after watching the Sandman play so many times. Fiora rarely made such important decisions. She was a little helpless. She wanted to find a quiet place to think about it. She did not say goodbye to Superman and Supergirl and flew away alone. Supergirl was in a worse state than her. She was so distracted that she did not even notice Superman calling her. She went back to her apartment and changed her clothes like a robot. She grabbed a pillow and sat cross-legged, staring at the wall in a daze. Not long after, Lena, who got the news from Superman, also came home. She waved her hand in front of Kara's eyes. Kara's eyes were unfocused, which made Lena very anxious. She grabbed Kara's shoulders and shook her. "Lena, are you off work?" After a long time, Kara finally came back to her senses. Lena let out a sigh of relief, shrugged off her high heels, and sat next to her. Kara was like a little pet that was about to be abandoned. She leaned into her arms pitifully. "What happened? Do you mind telling me?" Kara told him the whole story in a low voice. Return to the past or rebuild Krypton? From Lena's perspective, she certainly hoped to choose the latter, but she had the rare sympathy of the Luthor family. She always knew that Kara missed the life of the past. If she had a choice, she would rather go back to Krypton than be a Supergirl on Earth. At the end of the day, she was just a little girl who was not very mature yet. Returning to his parents and returning to a familiar environment was more attractive than being a superhero on Earth. Go back. Go back to your parents' side and grow up healthily and happily. After that, you can happily find a handsome guy or a beautiful girl. Lena seemed to be looking forward to something, but as she spoke, she began to cry. She couldn't bear to part with him. The two of them had broken through the eyes of the world and overcome the obstacles of their families. It really wasn't easy for them to reach this point. Now that things had just settled down, Thea was causing trouble. Lena was full of resentment towards Thea. "I don't want to leave you. I don't want to forget you." Kara frowned as she lay gently in Lena's arms. When Thea said that she could go back, her first reaction was to go back. However, Lena's love restrained her. "This was the most difficult part. And Alex, and these friends, but I really miss home. What should I do?" "Lena." Kara did not know what to do. "Are there any of your relatives among the living Kryptonians?" After all, Lena was a bystander. She looked at the problem from a new perspective. She neither supported nor disagreed. As soon as this topic was brought up, Kara's attention was attracted. When she was taken away from Kansas City, it left a deep impression on her. For a long time afterward, that scene was her nightmare. The Aya family was a very large family. Naturally, she had relatives and friends in Kansas City. She quickly took out her phone and called Thea. She wanted to ask who was in Kansas City now. Thea was a little speechless when she received the call. She was not in charge of household registration. How could she know who was in Kansas City? She could see the souls of all living beings, but whose souls had names? However, she still took a look at the source of the bloodline. Kara's relatives were indeed in Kanda, and they were very close by blood. Kara originally thought that the two options were half and half, but now the balance had shifted to maintain the original state and save her relatives. Unlike Kara's dilemma, Superman did not want to go back at all. His wife, son, friends, adoptive mother, and righteous companions were all here. Although his biological parents were not around, the heavy responsibility had always settled in his heart. He had not forgotten it for a day. The idea of protecting Earth and bringing hope to mankind had never wavered. He was ready to choose the second option. After Thea, he walked into the Batcave and wanted to talk to his old friend. Batman had a unique way of thinking. He could always see things that others could not. When he heard Superman's intention, he was furious. "What did you say? 100,000 Kryptonians." Batman grabbed Superman's collar. Superman came in casual clothes. He racked his brains. If he could not even defeat one Kryptonian, would Earth still be able to survive if 100,000 Kryptonians came? "Are you crazy? Have you ever thought about the destruction caused by 100,000 Kryptonians who have been exposed to the sun? What if they want to enslave Earth? How can we resist them?" Superman was speechless. He had confidence in his compatriots, but in Batman's words, the Kryptonians were an evil race that burned, killed, looted, and committed all kinds of crimes. My compatriots will not do such a thing. Kryptonians have systems and laws. Kryptonians have enough civilization and technology to develop themselves. They will not enslave intelligent life in any form or excuse. They recycle and reuse energy. Kryptonians do not need to plunder resources. So, your worries are really unnecessary. Batman felt that this was not a good thing. It was far beyond his control. But he could not kill 100,000 innocent Kryptonians. After all, they had done nothing wrong. Whether it was Superman or Thea, they were upholding justice in this matter. Saving their compatriots was not a bad thing. Early the next morning, Thea was woken up by the guys knocking on the door. It would be troublesome if she were an ordinary woman. Fortunately, she was not. With a thought, she stood outside the door, looking radiant and well-dressed. Fiora, Kara, and Superman were all there. They rushed over immediately after confirming the real idea. Of course, there was an uninvited guest among them. Looking at Batman, who was sullen and looked like he had not slept for the whole night, Thea was puzzled. She looked at Superman questioningly. Why is this guy here? Did you ask him to come? Where are you going to settle these rescued Kryptonians? Batman asked. My idea is to build a new planet. Otherwise, we can't talk about Kryptonians, right? This is also my promise to Fiora. After Thea finished speaking, the three Kryptonians nodded together. The idea of building a Kryptonian autonomous region on Earth was unrealistic. Chapter 1046. The Kryptonians are now ordinary people. I can accept rescuing them, but what are you going to do if they need to be strengthened? Batman continued to ask. The strengthening of the Kryptonians was like a bug in the system. No other race in the universe could grow faster than them. Thea, of course, had thought about this problem. 100,000 Kryptonians who had sunbathed in the sun would line up and shout, 3, 2, 1, go. 100,000 Kryptonians firing heat rays at the same time would be a spectacular scene. Not to mention her, even if it was God himself, he would also be beaten to the point of excrement. When the number of Kryptonians accumulated to a certain extent, it would affect the quality. Unfortunately, no strong man would fight with them like that. Changing reality to create a red sun could wipe out all the Kryptonians. She was not worried about the Kryptonians. If she wanted to, she could extinguish all the stars in the universe and rewrite the Kryptonian genes. But she still explained, the Kryptonians are not bad people. Do you admit that? Batman had reservations about this, but when he saw the three Kryptonians around him, he nodded. You don't have to worry about the 100,000 Kryptonians. Not all of them are warriors. There are scholars, artists, teachers, and people from all walks of life. In fact, there are less than 1,000 warriors in 100,000 people. And, she considered her words and finally decided to tell the truth. When Brainiac invaded Kanda, more than half of the warriors in the city were sacrificed. So I estimate that the number is far less than 1,000. Superman was thinking about the sacrifice of his compatriots. Fiora had been exiled with Zod at that time and did not see the actual scene. But Supergirl was different. She was one of the witnesses. If the trapped Kryptonians were not counted, she was the only witness. The memory of that day was still vivid in her mind. Brainiac was like a super demon who captured an entire city. She was a little sad, but more than that, she was scared. At that time, Brainiac controlled a huge mechanical body to enter the orbit of Krypton. With a wave of his hand, he defeated all resistance forces and finally took over Kanda City, the cradle of the Kryptonian civilization. But it was because of this demon that Kanda City and 100,000 Kryptonians escaped the disaster. Supergirl was not sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing. Not everyone wants to fly. Most people just want to live their own lives. They should not be kept in a small bottle. Supergirl nodded vigorously. She was the one who wanted to live a peaceful life. Well, I send my blessings to the future of the Kryptonians. But what are you going to do with the hundreds of soldiers? What if one of them wants to conquer Earth? Batman felt that the number of suspected enemies had been reduced from 100,000 to a few hundred, but he was still worried, very worried. He always felt that Thea was playing with fire. Fiora sneered, but she didn't say anything because she knew that someone would jump out to refute. As expected, Supergirl looked at Batman angrily. There's no such person on Krypton. We never conquer other planets. We only help them. Earth doesn't need your help. Batman refused to budge. Superman hurriedly pulled his cousin and best friend away. He was afraid that Supergirl would beat up Batman, but he was also afraid that Batman would give Supergirl a Krypton. Thea watched from the side with a wicked sense of humor. Seeing that the dispute had subsided, she continued, "You all know about the Green Lantern Corps, right? They have some internal disputes now, and their numbers have decreased sharply after several disasters. So, you're going to let the Kryptonians help maintain peace in the universe? That's a good idea." Superman was overjoyed. Thea then poured cold water on him. "You can't do it for the entire universe. After all, you rely too much on the stars, and the stars in the universe are not completely suitable. When Joe sent you to Earth, it was the result of a series of complicated calculations. Not all stars can provide energy. Some stars are in decline, and some are not completely compatible with your genes. There are also many red stars, so the Kryptonians can only be used as a supplement for the Green Lantern Corps. My idea is for two teams to supervise and promote each other to maintain peace in the universe." Thea's words were very much in line with the mainstream values here. Superman kept nodding in agreement, and Batman couldn't think of any objections. "Where are you going to put the new Kryptonian? If it's too far." Supergirl was still thinking about her family. She wanted to be able to see them at any time, but she couldn't bear to leave her loved ones and friends on Earth. She was conflicted. "That's easy. It'll be in the same orbit as Earth, on the other side of the Sun. Two planets in the same orbit will revolve around the Sun." Thea's words made Batman's face darken again. After one round, the 100,000 Kryptonians were back. "Can't you throw them further away?" "Don't worry, we can give them the right to choose. If they want to uphold justice, they can absorb the star's energy. If they want to live a normal life, I can also rewrite their genetic information. Moreover, the Kryptonians are missing a lot of key technologies. Now that they are rebuilding their civilization in a desert, they won't be a threat in the future. I'm afraid that the ambitious people on Earth will provoke them." "I'm willing to be the bridge between both sides," Superman said. "I'm willing too," Supergirl said loudly. "Well, it seems that all of you are going to choose the second option, right?" Thea glanced at the three of them, and they nodded in unison. Some things were in the past. If they were to erase their memories and go back, would they still be themselves? Without exception, all three of them chose to go on with their lives. It's a long journey. Everyone, get ready for battle. There's an 80% chance that Brainiac won't surrender, so I need you to fight. Thea was not going to participate in the battle. It was actually quite enjoyable to watch others fight and kill. The three Kryptonians felt that it was reasonable. After all, it was their business. Batman nodded calmly and was ready to go with them. Seeing that he was determined to follow the three Kryptonians to gain experience, Thea didn't stop him. Let him go if he wanted to. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at a technologically advanced building. There were countless wires and machinery around them, and the ceiling was more than 10 meters above the ground. The spacious space was abnormally quiet, and there was no other sound other than their breathing. A deathly stillness filled the hearts of these people. The lady broke the silence as if nothing had happened. She pointed to the left and said, "This way." She walked forward casually, and they followed behind her. Fiora looked around and said, "There's lead here. It's obstructing my observation. There's not only lead, but also a lot of technological equipment. The one above our heads seems to be a positioning warning system. The weird equipment in front seems to be observing us, and..." Batman quickly found several suspicious points. What she meant was that they had been discovered. Chapter 1047. Don't get too worked up. Pay attention to your strength. We're inside Brainiac's spaceship, or rather inside his body. If you use too much force and break the glass cover, it'll be troublesome to repair it. Thea sat casually on the side. As soon as she finished speaking, several high-tech metal pipes were quickly pieced together. Like squeezing toothpaste, A large mass of green substance was squeezed out and quickly solidified. It was a very advanced biotechnology. Not long after, a 2-meter-tall man with a stern face walked out. The bionic skin was just like a real person. Every subtle expression, every trace of facial muscles, and facial nerves were simulated to perfection. This was Brainiac, or rather, one of his mechanical clones. Thea looked at this guy calmly. He relied on the data network to obtain the knowledge of all civilizations. If it wasn't for Mithran occupying the god of knowledge, Brainiac would have become a god long ago. He had countless clones. Hiding in a virtual world, normal people couldn't do anything to him. However, in the face of death and under the rules, Thea could kill him as easily as killing a normal person. But she wouldn't do that. Brainiac's fate wouldn't end today. He could still live for a long time. What a surprise. There are still Kryptonians, and 3 of them at once. Brainiac's eyes flashed red as he analyzed the characteristics of the 3 people. Then, he saw Batman. Where did this creature come from? Inferior genetic makeup, crude protective suit, intelligence seems to be okay. How did the 4 of you get in here? Brainiac scanned Batman from the inside out 3 times, but he couldn't find anything wrong with him. 4. They looked at Thea. Haha, he can't see me. To him, I don't exist. Good luck. Thea clenched her fist and cheered them on. Hand over Kanda City, and we'll leave immediately. Superman was a gentleman. He stood in front of the 2 ladies. Kanda City? Are you referring to the treasure I got from Krypton 38 years ago? You demon. Kara was furious, but Superman stopped him. I like to collect unique things, learn their knowledge, and appreciate their culture. This makes me feel like I'm not just a pile of cold data. I like Kanda City very much. I used to think that it was unique, but now it's a pity. What do you want? According to my 35th principle, when a race is no longer unique, Brainiac must eliminate the superfluous. Seeing that the battle was about to start, Batman looked back at Thea. Aren't you going to help? You should be able to handle him, right? Of course, but my power is too great. If we fight here, half of the universe will be destroyed, Thea said pretentiously. It was very difficult for an elephant to step on an ant and avoid other ants. Of course, she could do it when she could use her power freely. However, she had just died, and her power was a little weak. She did not have enough control over it. Now, she could easily break through 3 or 4 universes with a casual strike. Don't worry, I'll deal with him. Führer flung off his cloak and rushed out. A punch that could shatter a mountain was aimed at Brainiac's head. She did not care even if it was a real person, let alone a robot. Brainiac looked at her without feeling anything. His muscles expanded rapidly, and he turned from an ordinary man into a muscular man in less than half a second. He easily received Führer's punch and kicked her in the stomach. Under the huge force, Führer was kicked dozens of meters away like a cannonball. She smashed into the wall and slid down slowly. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Before she could do anything else, Brainiac started his counterattack. Several mechanical tentacles reached out from the wall and evilly tied Führer to the wall. On the other side, Brainiac started to charge like a wild beast. Supergirl tried to stop him, but he easily dodged her and gave her a hard kick in the back. He and Führer were connected by the same fate. They went in different directions and were also tied to the wall. A specimen like Calafiora was not worth his time. From the moment they met, Brainiac's target was Superman. This was a Kryptonian model that he had never seen before, so he was very interested. Superman and Batman, the old partners, once again fought side by side. The 2 had a tacit understanding. After a few quick cover-ups and feints, Superman faced Brainiac while Batman went to save Führer. They did not need to talk or make eye contact. They quickly divided the work. Batman looked at the position of the 2 girls and ran to Führer first. This was not because Supergirl scolded him, but because Führer was smarter. While Supergirl was still foolishly fighting the tentacles, Führer had already put on the yellow light ring and conjured a bunch of tools to help her escape. As a non-staff member, Batman and Führer were somewhat close. He placed a small device on the cut section of the tentacle, and the tentacle automatically healed. Batman stood in place and operated the device on his wrist. In less than 10 seconds, Brainiac sensed that something was wrong. He looked at Batman and asked, "What did you upload to my database?" Boom. Before he could get an answer, Superman punched him in the face. At the same time, Fiora and Supergirl were also freed. If the three prepared Kryptonians could not beat Brainiac, they would not be able to do anything. It was like a demolition site. The few of them fought in the spaceship until the ground shook. Luckily, Brainiac's technology was advanced and the spaceship was sturdy enough. An ordinary spaceship would have been destroyed long ago. "You demon." Superman punched a big hole in Brainiac's chest. Supergirl behind him flew up, grabbed Brainiac's head, and pulled it up forcefully. Amidst the ear-piercing crash, all kinds of unknown parts fell to the ground. Half of the metallic spine was pulled out. The countless wires were more intricate and complex than human nerves. Brainiac's head could turn at will. Even though he was only left with his head, he still looked at Supergirl. Supergirl's eyes were red, and her heart was boiling with murderous intent. No one present could better understand the harm Brainiac had done to the Kryptonians. She only hated herself for not being able to save her own people. "Kryptonian woman, you can't kill me. Although I don't know how you came in, do you think you can defeat me in my body?" Brainiac's face was full of mockery. Supergirl exerted force with both hands, trying to crush his head. "Resurrection? Then I'll crush it again." Chapter 1048. Calm down. Thea's words were like a bucket of cold water poured directly on her head. Her rationality, which was about to go out of control, returned. Brainiac could not see Thea. He was puzzled. What was wrong with this Kryptonian woman? Why was she not angry all of a sudden? However, the female Kryptonian's next sentence shocked him. "Sister Thea, what should we do with this guy?" At first, he thought that Supergirl was using some kind of remote communication device to speak. Brainiac checked 3 times and tried 39 advanced civilization scanning systems, but he could not find any wavelength that could provide the basic conditions for communication. There was another person here. There were not 4 of them, but 5 of them. Brainiac was a little confused. He used more detection methods, including the head, the entire spaceship, and the distant depths of the universe. He repeatedly checked countless times, but there was no one here. There was no invisible person as he thought. Thea could not be bothered with him. Brainiac was like a mountain in the past, but now he was nothing. She signaled Supergirl to pass the head in her hand to Batman. Batman did not disappoint. He directly uploaded several pieces of code into Brainiac's data. "What is that?" Supergirl, who was a slacker, said that she did not understand. "It's fear described in a digital format." Thea could tell at a glance that Batman was a genius. Although his level was many times lower, his digital fear was like God using equations to describe life and reverse life. Brainiac was down, and it was difficult to clear the data anomaly in a short time. They swaggered into the showroom. There were hundreds of glass covers here, and inside them were cities of civilizations. It was as if they were frozen, and they were still in their original state when they were abducted. The 3 Kryptonians split up to search. Thea looked around casually. Batman was still the same. He was using some unknown black technology to download all kinds of data from Brainiac. "That guy lives in the data. Don't bring him back to Earth." "I know." Their short conversation was interrupted by Kara. "I found it." Kanda City. Thea and Batman hurried over. Looking at the miniature version of Kando, they felt a little emotional. The ancient city of the Kryptonian civilization, Kanda, had changed a lot. It was completely different from when they had gone to deal with Raoul 350,000 years ago. However, the modern Kryptonians had preserved the ancient ruins very well. They could still see the outline of the city in detail. The wasteland had been replaced by technology, and the primitive tribe had become a beautiful city that radiated the brilliance of civilization. Fiora and Kara began to use their supervision to search for acquaintances. Superman watched from the side, looking at the traces of his civilization and his own people. "It's Sarah. Sarah Yawa. She's my best friend in school. Oh my God, she and her mother are both here." Although Fiora also saw many familiar faces, such as subordinates, colleagues, and friends, she was very calm and did not make a fuss like Kara. The four of them listened to Kara's occasional exclamations. They could all understand this behavior. Kara needed an outlet. Oh my God. Raoul bless us. Kara suddenly covered his mouth as tears streamed down his cheeks. Thea asked Fiora with her eyes. Who did she see? Fiora carefully identified and compared it with her memory. Oh, this seems to be the Aya family, Zoaya. She then whispered, it's Kara's father. Although her voice was very low, everyone present could hear her. Superman did not expect to meet a direct relative. This was his uncle. Thea looked at the time and had to interrupt them. Let's go. We will restore it together when we get back. Your family will have time to catch up. Superman was ready to put down the surrounding glass covers. What if they are an evil civilization? Where will they be placed? Is it also in the solar system? Only Batman could be the villain. Milady was too lazy to save outsiders. This time, she came to save the Kryptonians because of her promise to Fiora. The other aliens had nothing to do with her. After saving them, there would be a lot of trouble, such as where to eat, where to live, whether the environment was suitable, civilization, technology, climate, and so on. It would be better to leave them here in Brainiac to cultivate. Out of sight, out of mind. In order to prevent trouble, when Superman and the others were fighting Brainiac, she did something. A few cities that looked like a gentle civilization were hidden. The rest were either dead cities or a group of vicious villains. In the end, Superman was convinced, and they brought Kanda City back to the solar system. Batman had the yellow light ring, and the rest of the Kryptonians could survive in the universe. They wanted to watch Thea and see how she would create a new planet. With the experience of creation as a foundation and the support of powerful strength, Thea looked at the Earth's orbit. According to the agreement, the Sun was the boundary, and the two sides were opposite. Because of the Sun, the new planet could not be observed with the naked eye. As for those who had the means to observe, they were left to Superman. There was some black technology left by Joe-Ale in the Fortress of Solitude. In Thea's view, it seemed to be some kind of electromagnetic interference device. As long as it was installed somewhere in the new Kryptonian, any means of detection would be ineffective, and the new Kryptonian would be able to develop without interference for a long time. The four elements of earth, fire, water, and wind were gathered together, and a planet suddenly emerged. Batman's eyes were a little blank. This was completely different from the evolution of the planets in his mind. What happened to the matter fragments and the gravitational force? Don't mind the details. Sia was too lazy to explain the principle behind it. It could only be understood but not explained in words. In short, she could skip the birth process of those planets and directly modify reality to create a new planet. And to ensure that the future Kryptonians would not be acclimatized, she used the original Kryptonian model. The gravity, oxygen content, and ecological environment were similar to the previous Kryptonian. The few of them landed on the ground, and Supergirl was very anxious. Thea temporarily stopped her. Some necessary precautions had to be taken. She blocked the light of the star, and then directly placed Kanda City at its original location and reverse atomized it. A vast city rose from the ground, completely sealed off from the outside world. Even the technologically advanced buildings remained in their original state. Bloodstains that had yet to dry could be seen on the streets, left behind by the warriors who had resisted Brainiac to the very end. Pedestrians were lying on the ground in twos and threes, unconscious from the impact of the energy. They did not expect to sleep for 38 years. Supergirl ran to a middle-aged man, who was her father. She wanted to wake him up, but she was afraid that it would cause other problems, so she could only look at Thea for help. Chapter 1049. Zwael was different from Kara. Kara had shoulder-length blonde hair, while Zwael had short black hair that was very characteristic of the male members of the El family. He was somewhat similar to Superman. He had a square face, and his face was slightly older. Even though he was unconscious, his forehead was wrinkled, as if he was struggling with something. Thea glanced at him and said, "Don't worry. They will wake up soon." While waiting, She quietly modified the genes of the Kryptonians. Except for Fiora, Kara, and Superman, the rest of the Kryptonians could not reach a high level even if they were exposed to the stars. At best, they could only reach the level of the Green Lantern. The universe did not need a mass-produced Protoss. The Kryptonians had violated the taboo, and their genetic technology had been developed to the extreme. It was no accident that they were wiped out. If Thea modified their genes in the real world, they would definitely go downhill in the future. Their civilization level might regress to level 7 or even level 6. But it was better than being wiped out by unknown powerhouses. Not long after, people woke up one after another. Kara's identification was not very successful. She was still a child when she left Krypton. Now, she was a young lady. Zwair was not very sure about their relationship. Fiora's identification was much smoother. Her appearance did not change. Her subordinates, at least former subordinates, were present. A group of people slowly gathered around them and asked questions. The three Kryptonians were the main characters here. Thea and Batman walked out of the crowd and looked at them from afar. "Are you sure this will not bring disaster to Earth?" Batman asked. "That won't happen. None of them are at Clark's level. In fact, they're far inferior to him. Your worries won't happen. You have seen the technology of Kanda City. This is an ancient city of civilization, not a city of technology. With the lack of genetic technology, various knowledge gaps, and a new social environment, it will take many years for them to recover to their former level. Earthlings have already left the solar system. They will definitely come into contact with the Kryptonians in the future. They will spur and promote each other. It doesn't matter if the politicians on Earth treat the Kryptonians as an imaginary enemy. It is better to be hostile to the Kryptonians than to the Earthlings. This will reduce internal friction, which is beneficial to the development of mankind. It was rare for her to speak at length. This was not only for Batman, but also for the three Kryptonians in the distance. Will there be any trouble on Earth? Superman didn't know anyone. Fiora and Kara were talking to their classmates and friends from time to time. He had nothing to do standing there, so he simply flew to the side and chatted with them. Not in the short term. With you as the bridge, the two races will gradually coexist. Thea thought for a moment and said, "In fact, the genes of the Kryptonians and the genes of the Earthlings are very similar in many ways. Maybe they have a common ancestor." Batman nodded slightly at this question. He had studied the Kryptonian genes and found that there were many similarities between them and the Earthlings. The two might have a common origin. As for whether the Earthlings originated from Krypton or Krypton originated from Earth, there was no need to delve into this question. All they needed to know was that for a long time in the future, both sides would live under the same sun. In the evening, Zwair, the representative, came to talk to them about the future of Krypton, the current life of the Kryptonians, the shortage of supplies, and various other issues that needed to be discussed in detail. Thea didn't respond to Zwair, who wanted to talk to her. Instead, she looked at the female adjutant. "Fiora, my friend, thank you for your help over the years. Our agreement has been fulfilled. You are free now. Go back to your people." The female adjutant had been diligent over the years. She had helped Thea with all kinds of things, regardless of whether it was integrating the forces under her or participating in various activities. She had done everything perfectly. She was Thea's most capable assistant. In the beginning, it was just a verbal agreement. If Fiora wanted to strengthen herself, she only needed to bask in the sun. Thea didn't provide any help. Instead, she enjoyed Fiora's selfless dedication. Even someone as thick-skinned as Thea couldn't stand it. So the first thing she did after reaching the top was to fulfill her promise. Fiora laughed self-deprecatingly. She looked back at the Kryptonians and said, "They need to rebuild their homes. I don't have the ability to do that. If you still need me, I am willing to continue to serve you." Thea was overjoyed. Her subordinates were too weird. With Fiora in charge, it would save a lot of trouble. Whether it was the funny Gertrude, the crazy electric lady, the group of yellow lanterns with ugly faces, or the Zerg, they all needed someone to coordinate their relationship with each other. The female adjutant had followed Thea around for so many years. Her vision had been broadened. In fact, she liked this kind of life from the bottom of her heart. It must be very difficult for her to go back and help the Kryptonians build houses. Of course, it would be my pleasure. If you don't object, accept the divine position of the soul. You can be my assistant in the netherworld. She had left behind a projection in the underworld with the Death Divine Seat to guard it, but the strength of the projection was still a little weak. Fiora was very suitable. If she had a divine seat, other than Hades and a few others, she would be invincible in the underworld. The relationship between the two continued. Thea asked about Zod. The general's personality is too strong. I'm afraid it will destroy the current structure of Krypton. Let him continue to sleep. Fiora had been on Earth for so many years, and now she was more reserved in her speech. But Sia still understood what she meant. Once Zod was resurrected, he would definitely seize power and then fight with Zod heir to the death. This was not a good thing. The new Krypton needed a peaceful governor, not a general who could fight well. Zod would just continue to lie there like a corpse. Even if Thea could be realistic, would a gentle and polite Zod still be Zod? So, it was better not to resurrect him. Fiora's words made Zoe, Kara, and Batman feel relieved. Except for Superman, who was a little disappointed, everyone accepted the plan calmly. Fiora gave up all her rights among the Kryptonians. Zoe was the direct descendant of the Air family and the Elder. The remaining two, Superman and Supergirl, could not compete with him for the right to speak. He would represent the Kryptonians in some negotiations. It was not until then that Thea realized this old man was also a capable person. After Brainiac captured Kanda City, he first sent their daughter away with his wife. Then, he caught up with Brainiac with Joair's black technology. Unfortunately, he had never been exposed to the sun and was no match for Brainiac at all. He failed to escape with his mouth and was thrown into the glass dome. Although he failed, yesterday's misfortune led to today's reunion. The father and daughter felt sorry that Kara's mother did not see this scene today. Chapter 1050. There was no end to the conversation between family members. Kara was still talking about her experiences on Earth. She was so excited that she showed off everything she had done to her father, such as high-speed flight, heat rays, and freezing breath. When she returned to the ground, her face was full of excitement, like a child waiting for praise. "Can I do that too?" Zoe was shocked. Flying was still within his understanding, but heat ray and freezing breath were a little out of the ordinary. There were less than 300 warriors left on New Krypton. It did not seem like a lot, but if they were all exposed to the sun, even if they were weakened versions modified by Thea, they would still be very powerful even if they were not at Superman's level. If 300 of them attacked together, fighting Doomsday would be child's play. The issue of strengthening was inevitably brought up as a key point. Naturally, they could not speak in English. Fortunately, they all knew Kryptonian. Well, Batman knew it too, but only God knew when he learned it himself. The truth is, all of your people can do it regardless of the division of labor. It's just that the intensity is different. Thea wanted to maintain her cold goddess image, and Batman was the one doing the explaining. However, Batman's attitude was not friendly. You need to be supervised by the Justice League. You need to accept missions to maintain the peace of the universe. You need to be checked regularly to see if anyone is breaking the rules and evolving their superpowers. You need to. Zoe's face instantly turned cold. You have saved me and my people, and I am very grateful for that. But if I remember correctly, we are not slaves. Superman and Supergirl's faces were filled with awkwardness. Batman's words were too blunt, so Supergirl hurriedly interrupted him. "Father, what he means is, to help each other." Supergirl's little face was flushed red. No matter how hard she racked her brains, she couldn't find a better way to phrase it. The Kryptonians were not slaves, but the Earthlings, Batman, were not at ease with them. This conflict was really difficult to reconcile. The young lady who started it all acted as if nothing had happened. She sat on the side with a smile and watched them argue. Batman kept winking at her, but she acted as if she did not see it. Finally, Superman could not help but ask her for a solution. "How about this? I'll cast a spell and let everyone enter a dreamland. In the dreamland, They will obtain extraordinary power. Let's see what they choose. Thea wasn't sure if she should cut off all the restrictions or gradually loosen them. In that case, it was imperative to simulate it. Although she wasn't the owner of the dreamscape, creating a simple virtual environment wasn't a problem. What you're doing is violating our privacy. Before Zoe could finish his sentence, he was engulfed in the virtual world. 100,000 people entered the virtual dreamscape without exception. They did not know that they were dreaming, but they were actually experiencing the subsequent developments. The choices of 100,000 people appeared before her eyes one by one. Some of them were brave, some were conceited, and naturally, there were also those who relied on their strength and acted lawlessly. Batman's worries were not unfounded. In the third year of the virtual world, Zoe died mysteriously, and the moderates were expelled from the planet. The simple Kryptonians quickly changed after coming into contact with the Earthlings. They directly enslaved the entire solar system and claimed that the sun was a gift from Rao. After that, they started a bloody war. The scale of the cosmic war grew larger and larger. In the end, the enemy risked their lives to destroy the sun. The Kryptonian civilization was short-lived and returned to nothingness. Other than dragging the solar system into the grave with them, they did nothing else. Impossible. What kind of spell are you using on us? Zoe woke up with sweat all over his forehead. The two guards beside him also looked terrified. In the virtual world, one of them died tragically during a coup, and the other was assassinated by the Earthlings with kryptonite. This is the true portrayal of your hearts. Everything is your own choice. Thea crossed her fingers. She was also thinking about how to deal with this matter. It turned out that in the face of power, no race could really stand aloof from worldly affairs. Obviously, Kryptonians did not need too many resources, and the recycling technology of energy was very mature. However, their tyrannical force still allowed them to embark on the road of rapid expansion. Superman's experience could not be replicated. Thea could not find 100,000 Johnsons and 100,000 Marshas to educate the Kryptonians. Even if she could find them, this group of people were not babies. Their worldview was already formed, and it was difficult for them to accept a new concept. You are right. If the Kryptonians are left alone, it will cause a disaster, Thea said to Batman very seriously. So, I have decided, Zoe suddenly interrupted. He pointed at Thea and said, you seem to be the judge here. Everything about us is decided by you. I always thought that you have a democratic system. The young lady pursed her lips. Supergirl had been winking at her, hoping that she would not be angry with her father for her sake. Then, do you have any suggestions? This has nothing to do with democracy. We saved you, and then let the Kryptonians enslave Earth. Won't that make us look stupid? Thea's casual words made Zoe speechless. I was not prepared just now. This time, let's do it again. Use your witchcraft again, and I will let you see the light of hope for Krypton. Zoe said quickly. Thea thought it was not impossible. She waved her right hand and said, let's go. 100,000 people entered the virtual world again. This time, they were much more restrained. Even the pro-war faction chose to retreat. The Kryptonians were very strong, but their weakness was also obvious. If they would eventually lead the race to extinction, then the battle would be meaningless. This time, the trajectory of development was fine in the beginning. However, in the later stages, the genes of the Kryptonians through inheritance became weaker and weaker, and the civilization of Earth ushered in several flourishing times. By the time the Kryptonians were strengthened, the army of Earth had already arrived at their doorstep, and the synthetic kryptonite bullets had completely wiped them out. When the human army attacked Kanda City, the Kryptonian Council was still arguing. Haha. I am dying of laughter. Thea held her stomach and laughed. Is this the light of hope you mentioned? Haha. Zoe's old face was red, but he still defended himself. Even if our democratic system is a little sluggish, this time, it is Earth that invaded Krypton. That is not wrong, right? Well, I have been rude. I think you all know your development strategy. Promote each other, spur each other, and coexist is the only way out. Do not hesitate to move forward, Thea said seriously, which was rare for her. She had to admit that these guys were really troublesome. They could not be too strong, nor could they be too weak. It was unrealistic to talk about a century-old national policy now. The two simulations should have given them some inspiration. In the future, the new Kryptonians would find their position. Chapter 1051. The new Krypton was not small. Although there were still 100,000 of them, it was not a large number. It would take time to restore civilization and establish a new order. Besides, Thea helped them to contact the Green Lantern Corps as a middleman. The Kryptonians would provide 150 soldiers who had been exposed to stellar radiation as an independent mercenary force to help maintain the peace of the universe. The Green Lantern Corps would provide some urgent supplies to solve the urgent needs of the 100,000 Kryptonians. Both sides took what they needed, and the supplies were soon in hand. This allowed the Archons, including Zoe, to put down their worries about the future and put all their energy into the task of rebuilding their home. "Are you guys staying or going back together?" Thea asked them. Fiora said she wanted to go to the underworld with her. Superman and Supergirl were going to stay here to help. The fearless Batman was going to observe the Kryptonians closely. "Okay, then you guys take care. Just call my name if you need anything. Theoretically, I can hear you anywhere." After that, she led Fiora back to the underworld. The female adjutant had a rich foundation, so it was not difficult for her to fuse with the origin. In less than 3 days, the new God of Souls was officially born. Thea was busy for half a month. She left her projection with the God of Death to oversee the underworld. With Fiora's help, everything was finally sorted out. After that, she went to the new creator planet and had a deep talk with Diana for 2 days. Thea curled up in Diana's arms like a lazy cat, rubbing her head from side to side. "Are those Kryptonians really not a threat?" "Of course they are. But, cough cough, I have tampered with their genes. The genes of the future generations will be weaker and weaker. In the end, they will remain at the level of an ordinary alien. Let's not talk about them. Let me see if your technology has deteriorated," Thea said and pressed her lips against the Valkyrie's red lips. It was a veritable war of words. It turned out that Diana was not the kind of person who followed the rules. She had been holding back all day long. Whenever she was seduced, she would respond with passion and passion. "Hey, you seem to have gotten stronger." "Ooh." The young mistress was beaten by Diana's sudden burst of strength, and she began to fight back fiercely. The higher one's realm was, the more tricks one would have. Why were those incapable rulers in ancient times able to do many indescribable things with many women? It was because they had too much power and no one could restrict them. The two of them were in such a situation now. The new Genesis planet had become their own territory. Who would dare to interfere with them? "Are you tired of living?" Without the pressure of survival, Thea had never felt so relaxed before. She completely let go of herself and happily accompanied Diana on the new creation planet. Occasionally, she would jump back to the timeline of the world. The first Sandman candidate to enter the official round had failed as expected. She was filled with helplessness. She could only restart and repeat the entire process. The current candidate was the 14th human to enter the official round. His name was Daniel. He had a handsome appearance and a dignified bearing. There was a hint of vicissitudes in his eyes. Thea was more optimistic about him. If she was not wrong, this Daniel had memories of his past life. He was born with a higher spiritual power than ordinary people. He was also very rational, very similar to Thea in her past life. The first 3 scenes were completed perfectly. Daniel had already transcended the body of a mortal. There was an inexplicable charm in his every move. The Sandman had 3 treasures. They were the sandbag that fell into Constantine's hands, the helmet that fell into Lucifer's hands, and a ruby that was lost in Arkham. Daniel had to find these 3 treasures so that he could go further in his cultivation. The sandbag was easily passed with Thea's warning. He successfully obtained it. However, hell was not that easy to enter. Moreover, he had to get the helmet from Lucifer. If there was no outside support, the difficulty of this mission would be hell level. This was when the young mistress had to appear. Many tasks required the cooperation of hell. She was like the Guanyin Bodhisattva who secretly observed Tang Seng's journey. She rushed to hell and prepared to discuss this matter with Lucifer face to face. She walked past a giant river with flowing lava, crossed a basin with jagged rocks, and passed through countless bloody battles with demons. She was like a shadow, heading straight for the deepest part of hell, the grandest palace. Her pace was neither fast nor slow. She was relaxed and at ease, as if she was going to meet an old friend. The low-level demons could not see her, but a few of the top demons vaguely sensed that something was wrong. However, no matter how they searched, they could not find her. Instead, many of the demons that were sent out died. They were completely dead and no longer existed. Even the will of hell could not save these unlucky demons. "Do you want to have a drink, beautiful lady? Beautiful lady?" A very casual voice sounded from her left. It was a blond man wearing a round hat, a long brown windbreaker, a white shirt, and a red tie. He held a cane in his hand. At first glance, he looked very young. However, if one looked closely, one would see that he was imperceptibly old. This was Lucifer, the first angel to voluntarily fall into hell. Unlike those who were exiled, he voluntarily left heaven and left the mission that God gave him. Thea's gaze swept across the other party. All kinds of rules flashed past her eyes one by one. It was hard to judge who was strong and who was weak. In terms of the authority of rules, Thea's priority was higher. However, Lucifer's abilities were very comprehensive. Once they fought, it was hard to say who would win. Of course. Thea nodded slightly. As soon as she finished speaking, the surrounding scenery changed. It was filled with the smell of sulfur. The volcanic lava that filled their vision disappeared completely. It was replaced by a very tasteful restaurant. The restaurant was very high up. Looking out from the floor-to-ceiling windows, it was already late at night. The city was filled with lights and pedestrians. The nightlife had just begun. Thea was not here to challenge the restaurant, so she did not feel any hostility. She also changed into a dress, revealing her swan-like neck and her entire arm. She wore thin high heels. Lucifer acted like a gentleman very well. He pulled out a chair and invited her to sit. The atmosphere was very warm. Piano music sounded from the surroundings. It was very romantic, full of affection, and full of artistic atmosphere. Thea frowned slightly. Under her interference, the melody had some subtle changes. She could hear a choir from it. The tone unknowingly went to the direction of singing hymns. Lucifer casually glanced at her. The Missy had an innocent look on her face. "It seems that you don't like this environment. Let's change." Lucifer's thoughts moved. The Western restaurant completely disappeared. The surrounding environment was still late at night, but it had turned into an amusement park. The two were sitting at a very ordinary table. It was much more comfortable here. Thea did not like to eat with strangers. Not to mention, she had to pretend to act with him. What role-playing, experiencing the life of a mortal? Please. She needed to be cured early. Chapter 1052. When she didn't have the ability, she would put on a smile. When she had the ability, there was no need to hold it in. Both of them fought in secret and didn't see much. She could only say that Lucifer was unfathomable. However, Thea wasn't a pushover either. "I represent the Endless family to discuss something with your majesty." She went straight to the point. Although there were only 2 members in the family and she was the one with the highest combat power, it had always been her style to use the name of a tiger. It would be a waste if she didn't use it. Her meaning was clear. They were a family, and they were bullying Lucifer because he was alone. The former archangel, the current king of hell, frowned. "I'm not afraid of fate. I've transcended fate. You can't do anything to me even if you attack me together." "That's right. You're willing to give up heaven and the fate bestowed upon you by the Supreme. This is admirable. Hence, we hope that you can cooperate with the Sandman's growth." Thea didn't seem to hear the unfriendliness in his words and continued speaking. "The Endless family will owe you a favor." Thea used the Endless family's name in her words. After all, she didn't owe anyone anything. If she wanted to repay it in the future, she would let the Sandman do it, or her family would do it personally. 2 omnipotent universal-level beings and 5 pinnacle multiverse beings. With such combat power gathered, even heaven and hell wouldn't be able to stop them. Lucifer revealed an expression that said he couldn't afford to offend them since they had the numbers advantage. He couldn't be bothered to pretend to be a gentleman. He waved his hand lightly and agreed to this matter. After they finished talking about official matters, the atmosphere calmed down. Speaking of which, why did your Majesty leave heaven back then? That father of yours. Did he expect you to do this? Thea asked curiously. He knows everything. There's nothing and no existence that can escape his attention. Even our conversation today is within his expectations. Lucifer stopped pretending to be a gentleman. He threw away his hat, loosened his bow tie, and poured himself a glass of wine. Then is your departure from heaven also within his expectations? Then why are you still doing this? What's the point? Thea took out a glass, and Lucifer poured her a glass. Needless to say, the King of Hell's treasured collection was indeed tasty. It was 2 levels higher than Dionysa's fine wine. The wine had a lingering aftertaste, and there was even a hint of thyme. She gave a thumbs up to show that it was good wine. I left heaven because I felt that I needed to leave. He predicted everything because his attention was still here. You mean that he didn't leave? No, he has indeed left. He has gone to a higher level and is pursuing something that I can't understand at all. The entire world is probably just a small toy in his eyes. He doesn't need to deliberately investigate it. The world has no secrets in his eyes. Do you think I will die? He changed the topic at the end and asked Thea a professional question. Her answer was indeed professional. Of course. Life is absurd, and death is random. Perhaps you will die inadvertently. As if she was joking, she made her own explanation, and Lucifer listened attentively. Where will I go after I die? What about you? Death can also die? I don't think so, if you compare this place to a big house. Thea pointed at the surroundings, and Lucifer knew that she was referring to the entire world. My duty is to turn off the lights, close the door, and leave. As for where I will go after that, I don't know. The conversation with Lucifer ended quickly, and the 2 drank a few glasses of wine. Even if they knew each other, it did not matter whether they were friends or enemies. Thea could not kill him now, and Lucifer could not do anything to her either. However, the topic of God still touched her, but it was just a touch, and not a strong one. Lucifer was born at a higher level, and he had never enjoyed the joy of leveling up. If he was like Thea, leveling up every 3 days, and leveling up every 5 days, he would be so happy that he would wake up from his sleep, and he would not be so bitter. If someone were to ask her now, she would definitely say that she was very happy, and she did not want to chase higher levels in the short term. Her current level was enough for her to be proud for a long time. Not long after she left, Daniel also came to hell. Lucifer used a kind of acting method to duel him and gave him the Sandman helmet. With the sandbag and helmet in hand, Daniel soon arrived at the next scene, Arkham Asylum. When he received the ruby, Thea appeared before him again. This is all your test, isn't it? Daniel was not an idiot. In fact, with the memory of his past life, he could see through people's hearts, and he believed that he had found the answer. Thea gave him an awkward but polite smile. F***ck, this is all fate's fault, why am I the one to blame? She did not know that this smile left a deep impression on Daniel. Daniel regretted it as soon as the words left his mouth. He was too rash, and his words were too harsh. There were many things that he knew in his heart, why did he say it out loud? Thea's smile made him suspicious for a long time, and this image was deeply imprinted in his heart for many years. The young miss didn't know that her mysterious smile had scared this Sandman candidate to death. She extracted the power of the 3 treasures and injected them into the candidate's body. An illusory aura filled his body. Daniel was initially a normal person with some talent, and the 70 years of imprisonment by the Secret Arts Brotherhood allowed him to learn magic. Now that Thea had split the power of the 3 treasures, he instantly reached the level of a new god. She put her hands in her pockets and raised her chin slightly, indicating for Daniel to follow. Where are you taking me? Daniel wore a plain white robe with golden stripes embroidered on the edges, and his hair had turned silver. His eyes were filled with the various forms of life, and he already had some of the characteristics of a Sandman. To the world of mortals. That's where I came from, what's there to see? Thea could not be bothered to talk nonsense with the Sandman candidate, and the two began their long journey. She was like a tour guide, and led Daniel around the world. Without alerting anyone, they first went to the Metropolis. This is your statue? Not long after entering the Metropolis, Daniel saw the statue of Thea erected by the citizens of the Metropolis. They did not hesitate to use the best materials and the best artists to carve it, and now the speckles on it were dense with the power of faith, and it was difficult not to see it. Yes, I came from here, and of course, this is my home now, Thea said proudly. This short and concise sentence gave Daniel a first impression of her, and he felt closer to her. Perhaps this second sister of his was not so high and mighty after all, and she also had an ordinary past. Chapter 1053. The Metropolis was busy during the day. The office workers were busy working for their salaries, the lawyers were debating in court, and the owners of small restaurants were preparing lunch. Everyone was working hard for the future. The lives of the ordinary people here are good. I can feel that their dreams are good. Thea was positive about this. After all, this was the headquarters of the Justice League, a place where heroes gathered. If gangs ran rampant and robbers were everywhere, they would not be able to survive. From this point of view, they were much stronger than Marvel's New York. In the evening, they arrived at Gotham. Batman was still moving around the rooftops, and the gangs were also doing their own little things. Year after year, day after day. I've seen this person before, in Arkham. Daniel pointed at Batman and said, "Is that so? I still need you to guide him in the future. You'll get to know each other later, but not now." She seemed to be hinting at something. They walked past a few cities. Oliver was still fighting Prometheus and the Silver Swan with the archery club. The Flash was fighting a battle of wits with the Thinker Devo in Central City. The Sea King was in his Atlantis, fighting with his brother. It's really messy. Do you live in this kind of environment? Daniel finally asked after walking with her for a long time. Thea thought for a while. It is indeed messy, but don't you think it's very lively? Daniel squinted his eyes and looked at her as if she was kidding. You have to be clear about your path. Fate wants people to pursue freedom. I'm a friend of life, and you have to be clear about what you need, or what you can give to the world. Now that we've seen the world of mortals, let's go to the realm of gods. She led the way. Miss Fan did not have the demeanor of not entering the house 3 times. She went to the new planet of creation first. Who is he? Diana was a little surprised to see her bring a man. There's a 70% chance that he's my brother. Her words made the Valkyrie's eyes widen. What kind of brother would have a chance? She had to admit that Diana's eyes were very beautiful. If it were not for the fact that there was no one around, she would have kissed them. He coughed twice and briefly explained the situation through the mental channel. After hearing the whole story, Diana was very cooperative. She ordered the guards to show Daniel around the new planet. Thea took the opportunity to send Daniel away and have a few deep conversations with Diana. Is that Empress yours? Daniel asked curiously as they were leaving the new creation planet. Yes, my lover. She admitted it openly. How envious. Hee. Since they were not that close, she thought about it and decided not to show off her affection. Hell, heaven, and heavenly realms were not obstructed. After a quick tour, Daniel's understanding of dreams finally began to rise from the mortal stage to the deity stage. After that, they arrived at the dream realm and the nightmare realm. The dream world itself was a place for sleeping demons. As a reserve member, Daniel had been here many times, so Thea had nothing to say. Their focus was on the Nightmare Lord. This place doesn't give me a good feeling, Daniel said. He only had a bad feeling, but Thea's feeling could be described as terrible. The infiltration was too strong, and the entire nightmare realm had been shrouded in darkness. As more and more darkness appeared, it attracted more nightmares from the material world. This was an extremely bad cycle. Yes, all the impossible things that only exist in the deepest part of the subconscious are being carried by a force and reappearing in the form of nightmares. The corruption here is faster than I expected. Can't you stop it? Daniel asked. Thea was silent for a moment. I can't stop it. The universe needs these dark forces to maintain the balance. It has to face all of this if it wants to become bigger. I can't interfere too much in this matter. She then changed the topic. But you can. You need to tidy up the fragments here and make everything return to normal. Find something to do for her brother and sister. That was how fate dealt with her, and how she dealt with the Sandman. The Sandman was a little dumbfounded. The nightmare realm in front of him was simply broken. He needed to restore it to normal on this foundation. No matter how he looked at it, it was a heavy physical labor. He looked at Thea with a little resentment. He was just complaining. Why did he suddenly have to do such an important task? The fifth-dimensional people believe that everything that exists is, in essence, a story. This is very interesting. Your task is to tidy up the story here. This is not a joke. This is something you must do. Eliminate all the facts that shouldn't exist, let reason return to the world, establish a set of mechanisms, and crush all the fantasies that exist in the subconscious. This is your task. She pointed at Daniel. When you complete the task here, you will officially become the Sandman. She briefly explained. As for how to tidy it up, the young mistress apologized. She didn't know. Let's go. I have high hopes for you. I hope you can become a member of the family. We still have one last stop, the Apocalypse Star. She pulled Daniel, whose footsteps were heavy, and they quietly arrived at the Apocalypse Star. She could be seen on the new creation star because she wanted to be seen. But here, if she didn't want to be seen, no one could see her. A great battle had just ended. The corpses of the Apocalypse demons and demons littered the battlefield. The Apocalypse Star was not a pushover. After the initial heavy losses, they had developed a way to kill the demons through countless cruel and bloody experiments. Now, the casualties on both sides were almost 1-to-1. The demons were only after looting, while Darkseid was risking his life. The foundations of both sides were different. After the continuous battle, the demons were already thinking of retreating. Death loomed over the entire Apocalypse Star. As the first god to bear the brunt of it, Darkseid didn't notice. He was so blinded by victory that he didn't even realize that a great disaster was about to befall him. Daniel didn't like the evil aura here. After taking a quick look around, he proposed to go back and repair the nightmare world. Thea didn't stop him when she saw how motivated he was. She sent the Sandman off and slowly walked into the depths of the Apocalypse Star. The demons were about to give up. This was a sign that many people and gods could see. The Apocalypse Star was holding a grand celebration to celebrate their victory after half a year of fighting. No one saw Thea. She slowly walked into Darkseid's vast palace. The new gods on Apocalypse Planet were all very nervous. The extraction of the anti-life equation was nearing its end. Darkseid had summoned them to his side to prevent anyone from trying to take advantage of the situation, and he was also worried about the conduct of his subordinates. What if one of them had evil intentions and wanted to steal his item? Chapter 1054. The good traditions of the Apocalypse Star were on full display at this moment. Everyone was greedy. It just depended on how rational they were. As it happened, the Revelation Stars group was a group of deities that were both ambitious and not too rational. Thea saw Darkseid's eldest son, Calibark, sneaking glances at the anti-life equation. The Great Wasteland Wolf and the Great Warlock were also secretly preparing for something. They were wary of each other and making use of each other. This team was too difficult to lead. Thea sighed. In terms of offense, the evil faction had the upper hand. However, in terms of unity, the righteous faction was 100 times stronger than the evil faction. None of the father's subordinates had ever coveted the anti-life equation. Darkseid was the most nervous at this moment. He had to suppress the gods and obtain the anti-life equation as soon as possible. He was under the most pressure. However, it was also because of this that he lost most of his cautiousness, which ultimately led to a tragedy. In fact, when the Apocalypse Star was established, the law of the jungle had been implemented on the first day, and the current outcome had already been decided. Everything was decided by force. Whatever was snatched was theirs. In the face of benefits, there were no restrictions. The Apocalypse Star's abnormal rule would make Darkseid suffer today. Back off. Darkseid did not know that there were people spying on them. He said in a low voice. A distance of a few meters was useless in front of the new gods. He wanted to see how long his authority could keep the new gods in check. Reality proved that he was still the majestic Darkseid. His subordinates did not dare to resist and subconsciously took a few steps back. The evil monarch was satisfied. He looked at the anti-watcher again. The anti-life equation was about to be taken away. This person's value would be greatly reduced. Darkseid was prepared to use him as a sacrifice to announce his great strength to the multiverse. However, he did not know that the anti-watcher he was preparing to sacrifice was chatting with Thea. Although the anti-watcher could not even move a finger, his realm was high enough that he could see Thea. The young lady did not distinguish between good and evil. Even the demon king of hell, Lucifer, could sit together and drink. Chatting with the anti-watcher who had destroyed many universes was not a big deal. They had been discussing the issue of re-employment for the anti-watcher. The anti-life equation was removed, and counter-supervisor was completely free. He would remove the burden of constantly destroying the universe and become Morbius again. From what I can see, you won't die today. The life energy needed to reshape you is nothing to me, but why should I help you? If I remember correctly, you were killed by the Black Death Emperor, and it was my white lamp that saved you. You still owe me a favor. The young miss would never do a losing deal. The counter-monitor in the spiritual world gritted his teeth in anger. That was obviously done by Black Thea. Even if you resurrected, what did you do after that? You got Darkseid to beat me up. What have you done? Don't you feel anything in your heart? No matter how he thought about it, being killed again in a critical state was not a pleasant thing. However, at this time, he really did not have much capital to argue with Thea, so he could only throw out his chips first. He said very tactfully, "What about the antimatter cannon? Didn't I help you get rid of the Black Death Emperor? That guy is your enemy too. You did that to vent your anger, didn't you?" The counter-monitor insisted that he was not venting his anger, but doing it out of righteousness. Thea did not believe his words at all. However, after thinking about it, getting rid of the Black Death Emperor was indeed an important step on the path to death. All right, seeing that you're pitiful, I'll let bygones be bygones. Tell me what benefits you can give me now. If you agree, I'll save you once. Thea was not anxious at all, waiting for him to name his price. The counter-monitor tower is in your hands, right? I call it Hell's Tower now. Fortunately, it was in the spiritual world. The counter-monitor almost vomited blood. Do you have any shame? That's right, that's right. Hell's High Tower. The High Tower can adjust the frequency of the multiverse vibrations, and the authority to control this is currently in my hands. Your endless family should know that the multiverse will soon experience an unprecedented darkness, and this, Hell's High Tower will play an important role in this. Friends of life, saving the innocent and doing your best to help the ordinary people. Isn't this your mission? For the two multiverse to merge smoothly, and to do your best to save the ordinary people, isn't this what you've always been doing? The counter-monitor understood her mission very well, and said word by word. Thea quickly weighed the pros and cons in her mind. The universe wanted to evolve, and it wanted to completely devour the dark multiverse and make it a part of itself, and vice versa for the dark multiverse. From the perspective of the entire universe, there was no difference between the two. No matter how they evolved, it would be the same for the universe as a whole. The universe did not care about justice or evil. However, from the perspective of life, the problem was huge. Thea could not guarantee how many people she could save. Just as she said to Daniel, at her level, there was no chance for her to do anything. She was more like a chess player, pushing things forward. She could not personally participate, because this would destroy the balance between the parties. Thea did not agree or disagree. She asked the counter-monitor curiously, "After taking off this armor, where do you plan to go?" She could understand the counter-monitor's behavior of crippling himself. No one could accept an intelligent life being turned into some kind of program and could only do something passively. When Morbius first became the counter-monitor, he had probably lost his sense of self and could only carry out his tasks mechanically. It was only after he almost died twice that he broke free from the control. Facing Thea's question, he did not hesitate. Leave this place, leave this world, and see some new things and new rules. How about it? Do you agree to my deal? I promise you. After agreeing on the terms of the deal, they looked at Darkseid again as if they were looking at a dead man. A strong sense of uneasiness shrouded Darkseid's heart, but he suppressed it forcefully. He thought that the environment was making him anxious. His mountainous body stood there, silently waiting for the final result. Heavy pressure surrounded the gods. They each had their own thoughts. Some wanted others to take advantage of them, some hoped that the trouble would not implicate them, and some hoped to replace the evil tyrant. Time passed slowly. 10 minutes, half an hour, an hour. Finally, after 9 hours, the life-reversing equation was extracted. Streaks of bright red energy cyclones mixed with countless black particles. The destructive energy swirled around each other like a miniature universe. Chapter 1055. Stop right there. Seeing that the anti-life equation had finally appeared, Calibark, the eldest son of Darkseid, who had been severely injured by Sia several times, could not suppress the desire in his heart. He could not help but take a step forward, but he was immediately stopped by Darkseid. Thea was secretly amused. Calibark was a complete idiot. Even if Darkseid did not die today, he would not be able to inherit the throne. Just because he was evil did not mean that he was brainless. Darkseid was very cautious. He scanned the faces of the gods one by one, taking in all their greed and greed. However, he was not afraid. He had enough power to suppress all disobedience. His movements were slow but firm. Under the gazes of the gods, he grabbed the anti-life equation with one hand. The anti-life equation seemed to have made a comparison and finally accepted Darkseid. It then turned into a ball of energy and entered his body. It flowed from his palm to his arm, then to his entire body. The scarlet energy appeared around his body. At first, it was just a shadow, but it gradually turned into cyclones. Darkseid's power shot up like a rocket. The entire Apocalypse planet was roaring because of the anti-life equation. Ordinary people were panicking, thinking that it was another natural disaster. However, the Great Plains wolves were flabbergasted. Where did this fear come from? Only Thea knew that the Apocalypse planet was rejecting the anti-life equation. It was a power that should not exist in this world, not even in the realm of gods. Perhaps Darkseid had also received a warning, but he did not care. He had to choose between the safety of the Apocalypse planet and his own power. This choice was not a problem for him. Other than the mad Yojar Khan, he was already at the peak of the new gods. He also had the Omega effect, and now that he had obtained the anti-life equation, the combination of the three powers allowed his strength to finally surpass the bottleneck of the peak of the multiverse, moving towards a higher level. After breaking through the bottleneck, Darkseid's vision suddenly widened. His eyes narrowed as he saw Thea, who was not far away, sizing him up. The Thea today was different from any time he had seen her before. There was no murderous intent, no playful expression. She was calm, as if she was looking at an old friend. Damn it. What kind of look is that? You actually appeared on Planet Revelation in your true form. His instincts told him that there was something fishy going on, and he forced himself to calm down. Thea waved her hand. I'm not here to fight with you. I'm here to fulfill my duty. Perhaps you can understand it as a rule. I'm not here to cause trouble for you. I'm here because I have to be here. Darkseid looked at her coldly, as if he was trying to gauge her strength. Since he was trying to fuse the anti-life equation, she must be here to cause trouble. He thought he had guessed Thea's intention. Get out. You're not welcome here. Otherwise, I won't hold back. Hee hee. Thea put her hands in her pockets and said casually, I won't mind your rudeness because you won't be able to laugh soon. Darkseid's uneasiness grew. He ordered his men, capture her. All of you, attack together. The Great Plains wolf was dumbfounded. His boss was pointing at the air. Who was he trying to catch? Ha! He must have grown too strong and lost his mind. As the oldest of the new gods, he was reminded of Yojia Khan's crazed state. He felt bitter, but at the same time, he was secretly delighted. If Darkseid went crazy, with the Apocalypse army under his control, it would be his turn to become the boss of the new gods. Seeing the confusion and doubt on his men's faces, Darkseid quickly turned to Thea. There was no illusion at all. How could his men not see her? Good move. You're qualified to be my opponent. He wanted to say a few more words to buy time. At the same time, he accelerated the fusion with the anti-life equation. Thea glanced at him coldly. Did he think that he wasn't dying fast enough? She tapped her finger lightly, and a white light shot out and hit the lifeless body of the anti-monitor. Amidst the clattering sounds, a bald middle-aged man stood up from the huge armor. He was the previous god of knowledge, the previous anti-monitor, Morbius. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. This was the breath of freedom. As the anti-monitor, he still had his knowledge and understanding. As long as he had enough energy and time, he would return to the top. This was a standard practice of abandoning his cultivation, and the result was not too bad for him. He hurriedly handed over the control rights of the anti-monitor tower, or rather, the Tower of Hell, to Thea, and completed the deal. Thank you for your help. The authority is yours. As for whether you save or destroy the world, it has nothing to do with me. If you don't have any other questions, I'll take my leave. Morbius removed his shackles and spoke very politely. Will we meet again in the future? Definitely not. You're very confident, aren't you? Her words were normal, but there was a lot of information in them. As long as she was still in this world, no one could escape from her. Morbius spoke so confidently. It seemed that he had found the path to another world. Then I wish you a safe journey. Thea nodded slightly. Morbius was leaving this world, and they would not have the chance to meet again. Although she did not know where he had found the path, Thea was not envious. She had even been to Marvel, so she was not interested in some random worlds. Morbius used a unique method to leave the Apocalypse Star. At first, death could still be seen on him, but his shadow became fainter and fainter, and soon disappeared from Thea's sight. He had truly left. This guy is quite capable, right? Thea asked Darkseid casually. It's your turn now, old friend. It's almost time. Darkseid's realm had reached a certain point, and he finally realized his own problem. Deity positions, the Omega effect, and the anti-life equation. Any one of them was suitable for him. If he combined any two of them, he might be able to do it. After all, he had a very strong foundation. However, it was dangerous to combine three different sources of energy. I am the invincible Darkseid. I can defeat all obstacles. These are insignificant obstacles. He was still stubbornly holding on. At the same time, he was trying his best to use all his power to suppress the anti-life equation. Thea did not comment. She was afraid of causing a misunderstanding. She even took a few steps back and smiled as she watched him die. A bunch of negative deity positions, coupled with the Omega effect that symbolized the end, and now mixed with the anti-life equation, three completely different energies with similar attributes were forcefully fusing together. He didn't want to die too quickly, not to mention that the anti-life equation had been tampered with by Michael. Chapter 1056. I can do it, I can do it. Darkseid's eyes were spitting fire. His muscles bulged, and his body grew rapidly. He quickly became a 10-meter-tall giant. His energy was accumulating rapidly. Not only did he not manage to get rid of it, but he even suppressed it, causing it to rebound. Blood-red flames burned wildly on the surface of his body. Black gas seemed to be trying to suppress the flames, but it only helped them spread. Seeing this, the Great Plains wolf seemed to have thought of something. Without another word, he turned and ran with his axe. Great Warlock Desard, the kind grandmother, and the other new gods also realized that something was wrong. They all scattered and fled. Only Calibark was still standing in his original position. He didn't care whether his father was in trouble or not. Instead, he wanted to reap the greatest benefits from this. This evil version of the father-son relationship was truly touching. Darkseid had always disliked this son. Since he couldn't have him, he threw a punch at him. Old man. Since you won't give it to me, I'll take it myself. Father and son finally clashed. Calibark unleashed all his potential. Like a wild beast, he dodged the iron fist and wielded his serrated sword. He was about to clash with Darkseid. Unfortunately, there was a huge gap in their strength. Now that Darkseid had grown much stronger, Calibark's attacks were no match for him. He was defeated in one round and was reduced to a punching bag. The energy in Darkseid's body had reached its limit. He finally found an opening to vent his energy, and he began to punch like a madman. He killed Calibark with just 2 punches. Then, he destroyed him with another punch. His body, divine seat, and soul were all destroyed. He had been destroyed by the omega effect of the anti-life equation. Sensing the disappearance of Calibark's aura, the other new gods ran even faster. Why aren't you running? Aren't you afraid of me? Darkseid had already grown to a height of 30 meters. He asked Thea in a muffled voice. The young mistress looked up at him and frowned slightly. This guy was indeed powerful, and his foundation was solid. However, this was as far as he could go. The aura of death on Darkseid's face was extremely thick. He was using his will to save his life. Unfortunately, his time was up. Crack, crack, an almost imperceptible cracking sound came from the depths of Darkseid's soul. The sound grew louder, and gradually spread to his mind, will, and body. Darkseid's chest completely split open, and a beam of light shot out from the front and back of his body. At first, there was only 1 beam, then 3, and finally a dozen. Each beam of light was about 1 meter in diameter and contained unfathomable energy. He opened his mouth to ask for help. At least he felt that Thea, who came from a higher dimension, could save him. But before he could say anything, he found that the world around him had become so strange. This was a world of black and white. There were only these 2 colors in the world. Thea looked at him without changing her expression, and he returned to his normal size. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the 30-meter-tall giant overflowing with energy that was about to explode. He knew that it was also him. The agitation from before had completely disappeared, and his rationality had returned. He finally understood his current state. Am I dead? Strictly speaking, you're not dead yet. You're just a hair's breadth away from death. Thea pointed at the giant. You'll die when he explodes. Are you going to save me? He asked with a hint of hope. Thea mercilessly shattered his fantasy. Impossible. You're already in such a state. Who can save you? She wanted to say that she was here to witness this moment, but she was afraid that she would infuriate Darkseid to death. I'm a friend of life. Starting from you, I'll absorb enough death to officially carry out my duties. While there's still time, if you have any backup plans, you can use them. Otherwise, it'll be too late. Thea seemed to be implying something. Darkseid gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. Unfortunately, he was only an illusion before his death here. He could not use any of his strength. Won't you stop me? Thea shook her head. You can do whatever you want. Whether you live or die has nothing to do with me. I only want to witness your death. I have to say that you're quite lucky. If I had completed the rules, you wouldn't have been able to escape so easily. After saying that, she closed her eyes and did not say anything else. The death of Darkseid, a top-tier god, was a huge matter to the multiverse. It was the same for her. The rules involved were extremely complicated. She had to sort them out one by one so that she would not make any mistakes. Darkseid snorted. In the face of his own death, he was still a little afraid. He took 2 deep breaths and forced himself to calm down. Let me out. Thea waved her hand and tossed his consciousness out. Then, an earth-shattering firework exploded before her eyes. Darkseid's body exploded from the inside out. The loud sound reverberated throughout the entire Revelation planet. Then, it spread to the god's domain and the multiverse. The violent energy blasted the palace away, and all the buildings within 50 kilometers were destroyed. The Revelation planet, which was already in a terrible state, was now in an even worse state. It was as if the entire planet would explode in the next second. The temperature instantly shot up to 80 degrees Celsius. It was only because the ordinary people here had a trace of divinity in their bodies. Otherwise, half of them would have died from the heat. Sia only took a quick glance and saw 30 volcanoes erupting violently. The entire planet was shrouded in the strong smell of sulfur. Earthquakes and hurricanes were wantonly sweeping through the ordinary people. Everyone was running for their lives. As for where did they run to? This planet was not a sacred place. They had no idea. They could only follow blindly. Darkseid's mountainous body collapsed to the ground. A crimson energy swirled around his chest. It was the anti-life equation. The equation wanted to escape, but it was suppressed by Thea. Even after being severely injured, Darkseid still had some instinctive will and vitality. If he was just a new god, he might be able to wake up after thousands of years. Unfortunately, the Omega effect negated this possibility. The power that belonged to the end of time prevented him from being resurrected through conventional means. The light in Darkseid's eyes gradually faded. This evil monarch who had dominated the multiverse for countless years was finally killed by his own greed and ambition. Darkness, evil, power, tyranny, and massacre were the foundation of Darkseid. At the same time, they were also one of the foundations of the world. If there was an upheaval because of his death today, the entire universe would suffer, especially on the eve of the arrival of the dark multiverse. Thea suppressed the anti-life equation. Naturally, she also suppressed the Omega effect and the 5 divine positions. Chapter 1057. You said you wouldn't stop me. A weak voice rang out in her ears. The young mistress gasped in surprise. She took a closer look and realized that it was Darkseid's soul. Darkseid had been coveting the deity of death for many years. Although he had never touched the deity of death and soul, he had managed to figure out many things from them. He had turned himself into a doppelganger, and the doppelganger into his original body. Darkseid, who had 5 deity positions, the Omega effect, and the anti-life equation, was indeed dead. However, his doppelganger was still alive. Through some sort of transition, his doppelganger had become his original body. Thea clicked her tongue. Darkseid's trick was ingenious. It seemed that everyone had their own tricks up their sleeves these days. All right, let's go. She let go of her suppression slightly, and Darkseid's soul escaped from his lifeless body. A black aura surged out and swept up the evil deity position. This was the highest level of the 5 deity positions, and it was the most suitable for him. Even though his original body was dead, the evil deity position still acknowledged him. He wanted to take the other 4 deity positions, but he was not a god with profound spiritual power. In his soul form, he did not have much spiritual power to communicate with the deity positions. Power did not care about him at all. Darkness was slightly hesitant. Massacre and tyranny were tempted, but they rejected him in the end. In the end, other than the evil deity position, he had snatched the other deities. They did not acknowledge him. Thea coughed. If you don't leave now, don't blame me for falling out with you. Helplessly, he turned into a black light and disappeared into the horizon. After his soul left, what little life force he had left was finally exhausted. The power of the deity position, the power of the Omega effect, and the anti-life equation were like wild horses, attacking her crazily. The multiverse was also shaken by this level of death. Thea blocked the prying eyes of the outside world. After thinking for a while, she summoned 5 people. Superman, Batman, Death Knell, Olean, and Mr. Miracle, Scott. She left a small area in the current area and stopped the timeline of the entire multiverse. Olean, the adopted son of the Heavenly Father, and Scott, the adopted son of Darkseid, were bystanders who had no idea what was going on. They had met each other on Earth before, so they naturally stood together. Superman and Batman knew a portion of the information, and the rest was based on guesses. They could be considered half-insiders. Death Knell was fully aware of this matter and had even made many preparations in advance. Olean, Scott, Batman, and Death Knell all knew that this was the Apocalypse Star. Only Superman didn't know, but Batman whispered something into his ear. Poor Superman, who was helping the Kryptonians build houses, didn't know why he was called over. Gentlemen, something big has happened in the multiverse. Darkseid is dead. She did not need to say anything. His body was right there, and everyone knew who he was. Death Knell did not say a word. He was the most confident. With Thea's help, it would not be difficult for him to obtain a deity's position. Batman also knew a lot of inside information. The two of them were just onlookers. Olean didn't have the slightest bit of regret for his father's death. He was very happy. His father's greatest enemy was finally dead. Scott was glad that he didn't have to hide anymore. Superman was the only one who asked, "We are very happy about this. But why did you call us here?" Although Darkseid is dead, he needs someone to inherit his deity's position. The 5 of you are the qualified successors that I have chosen. This is not a gift or a reward, but a heavy responsibility. I hope that you can be brave enough to bear this responsibility, she said seriously. Death Knell remained silent. It would be too fake if he took the initiative. It was best to pretend that he did not know. It did not matter if others believed him or not. Those are all negative things, right? Superman asked. How should I put it? From a human's point of view, they are indeed negative. However, this definition is laughable if you look at it from a macro perspective. I am the god of death. According to folklore, I should be extremely evil, but have any of you counted how many times I have saved the world? Am I right? The deity's position has nothing to do with what you want to do. If you are bent on evil, giving you the deity's position of justice will be useless. There was a moment of silence. Your Majesty, I am afraid that I will not be able to control the darkness in my heart. Please do not include me in the list of candidates, Olean said solemnly after some thought. He was the god of violence. His blood was naturally evil. Even with his Heavenly Father's teachings and the beautiful and peaceful environment of the new planet, he had to spend a lot of time to ensure that he did not lose himself in the darkness. Darkseid's deity's position must be even more evil. He was a little reluctant to accept it. Do you remember what your Heavenly Father said to you? Olean, your mission has only just begun. Think about your father's expectations and teachings. You don't have to use force to destroy evil. You can also be more flexible. If you can resolve the conflict, your Heavenly Father will be happy. In fact, from the bottom of her heart, Sia was not very convinced by these theories. It was just that when she was bored on the new planet of creation, she had flipped through many sayings of the Heavenly Father. This old man had actually thought of solving the conflict between the two sides through diplomacy. Now that she had raised the Heavenly Father's banner, Olean did not know what to say. After a while, he seemed to understand something. You mean, Thea nodded, indicating that it was as he had guessed. It is still too early to say. There is still a lot of work to be done. We can talk about it later. She then looked at Scott, the Heavenly Father's son and Darkseid's adopted son. I will also give you a chance. If you choose, you and Olean. Before she could finish, Scott interrupted her. There is no need. I am not made for that. I just want to live a quiet life. So, you don't have to consider me in your plans, preparations, and ideas. All right, I will respect your opinion. Thea was giving her Heavenly Father face because of Diana. Her Heavenly Father had secretly provided some help to Diana when she was stabilizing the situation. Otherwise, the war goddess would not have been able to stabilize the new planet so quickly. Actually, Olean was the most suitable candidate. He was the rightful second son. Now that Calibark had been killed, he was even the only successor to the Apocalypse Star. However, just as she said, there was still a lot of work to be done. She then turned to look at Superman, Batman, and Death Knell. What do you all think? I am willing to take on some responsibility. Death Knell immediately expressed his support. The choice was now in the hands of Superman and Batman. If we choose this divine position that you speak of, what effect will it have on the future of the universe? Batman was already somewhat moved. He understood what Thea was thinking, but Superman did not understand the deeper meaning behind it. Chapter 1058. Thea pointed at Darkseid's body. If those divine thrones are still on Apocalypse Star, they will be used by evil. If you can get your hands on them, the power of evil will fade, and justice will rise. This is why I gathered all of you here, not to share them with the evil gods. I'm not asking you to join them. I'm planning to use your willpower to restrain the negative deity positions. I don't know if I've made myself clear. She looked at them and explained in the most concise manner. Superman nodded. Very clear. I'm willing to do this. If I fall, please kill me. Thea chuckled. That's not necessary. It's just a deity position. You won't lose yourself to it. She had them adjust their mental states. Although it was a little subjective, a good mental state would make it easier to gain the recognition of the deity position. I'll release the restrictions. Get ready. Hey. Sia had just released a bit of her suppression when she saw the strength deity flying out with a red tail of flame. It didn't choose anyone else at all. It didn't even have the intention to look at them. It rushed straight into Superman's body. The young mistress was speechless. This level of compatibility was unparalleled. Both sides didn't need to cooperate or confirm with each other. They crossed the first step and began the second stage of fusion. She narrowed her eyes. This might be a special case. Normally, it wouldn't be this fast. Who wants to go first? According to the agreement, Death Knell was the second to go. Thea secretly pushed for the deity position of Slaughter to choose Death Knell after a few comparisons. Power and Slaughter both had a successor. It was as if the multiverse that was about to be destroyed in the next moment showed signs of calming down. Apocalypse Star, which had been trembling and releasing energy without restraint, also slowly calmed down. The surface temperature was still high, but it was pulled back from the brink of destruction. Thea returned to the normal flow of time. She told Superman and Death Knell some things to take note of for the new god before sending them back. Superman's foundation was frighteningly deep. The deity position of power didn't change him much. At most, it was just icing on the cake. He was still the same as before. Death Knell, on the other hand, was no match for him. Previously, he was considered a strengthened person, and with the yellow lamp, his body was slightly improved. But in front of the new god, this was nothing. It was as if he had skipped the demigod stage from the mortal stage and directly ascended to godhood. Thea asked him to return to the underworld to fuse with it. She had set up a formation there in advance, which could greatly improve one's physical fitness and facilitate the fusion. Death Knell, the god of slaughter, undoubtedly belonged to the ranks of hell. After the Canto god of shadows and the Fura god of souls, he became the third new god of hell. In terms of the nature of the divine position of power, there was no distinction between good and evil. Logically speaking, it was more appropriate for him to go to the new planet of creation. But Thea was afraid that he would hook up with Diana. After asking for his opinion, she decided that Clark should go back and help the Kryptonians build houses. After sending off the two new deities, she looked at the remaining 2 deity thrones and 3 other candidates. Scott expressed that he was willing to be a substitute. There was really no way to consider him. Batman continued to remain silent. Only Olean came up to choose. The result of both choices made his face darken. He already had the god of violence, and now tyranny had chosen him. Am I really destined to not be able to get rid of evil? Olean's face was full of bitterness. Someone has to bear the crown of evil. If it is destined, then you may be able to make some changes and lead the Apocalypse Star. You don't have to completely eliminate evil, but you can reduce disputes. Do you understand what I mean? She asked Olean. The adopted son of the Heavenly Father nodded bitterly. Let's return to the new planet of creation first. The follow-up still needs to be coordinated. I will meet the Wasteland Wolf later. The following matters need to be discussed with several parties. Ignoring the self-pitying Olean, Thea gestured to Scott and Batman. Who wants to go first? Batman stood straight and motionless. Scott sighed and walked forward. In less than 3 seconds, he was overjoyed. The god of darkness was not interested in him at all, and he did not have any approval of darkness. The compatibility between the two was close to 0. It seems that it has nothing to do with me, he said in a relaxed tone. Thea expressed her respect for this. Not everyone liked a life of fighting and killing. Some people liked to find a place to live their lives. She felt that this was understandable. All right, I will send you back. I will not disturb your life in the future. After sending Scott away, She had repaid the Heavenly Father's favor. The question finally returned to Batman. Do you really think that I should take this step? This is too heavy for me. This time, Thea did not mention the future or any duties. This was because Daniel had mentioned several times that the destruction of the nightmare was accelerating. She had to stop it at the source. Otherwise, the dark multiverse would invade. She changed the topic. Do you still remember our conversation when you came out of the time turbulence? Not knowing why she changed the topic so quickly, Batman still nodded. That matter is not over yet. In fact, it seems to be getting worse. You mean, our time flow is messed up? So you need me to be this new god and stabilize time? Thea scratched her head. Batman's imagination was quite realistic. It's more serious than that. Have you ever had nightmares? Batman's expression did not look too good. The nightmares have been following me since that alley. This is also the reason why I don't sleep much. The nightmare I'm talking about is a kind of manifestation. It's not the kind of dream that we talk about. It's a kind of existence that's more real and textured. They're born from the dreams of life. Things that are supposed to be impossible become reality there. You can understand it as countless evil parallel universes. Every different choice will create a world. But under the premise of nightmares, it will automatically choose the worst to form. Batman took off his mask. No one on Apocalypse Star knew him anyway. Even if they did, they would not go to Gotham to reveal his true identity. You mean, it's all because of me? Thea nodded. The Omega effect has lost its effect on you. It has changed some of the laws of the universe. The darkness in the deepest part of the universe took advantage of this and used you as a model. The darkness has started to spread with you as the reference, and it's getting faster and faster. What's there? Or should I say, where is it? Batman was very eager to know the answer. Everything. Everything that is usually suppressed under our rationality. Things that we would think about but would never do. These things are gathered together through nightmares. They are automatically generated on the other side of the universe. That's a little off topic. Come on, Bruce. See if the dark divinity is suitable for you. Thea gestured for Batman to come forward. Chapter 1059. He stood beside Darkseid's corpse as if he was on his way to the execution ground. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 10 minutes passed, and nothing happened. I guess I'm more suited to be a normal person. He laughed at himself. Thea was in disbelief. She examined it carefully and used her spirit power to comb through the various rules. She should not have made a mistake. Batman seemed to be a good fit for the dark divinity, at least more so than the knowledge divinity in the original timeline. But why was there no reaction from the divinity? If she wasted so much time talking and it turned out to be nothing, that would be awkward. The rule lines were complete, and the divinity was intact. Batman's talents were also suitable. Thea herself was one of the best in the world. It was impossible for someone of a higher level to interfere with the inheritance of the dark divinity. Thea was dumbfounded. She had not felt so awkward in a long time. Batman was staring at her. I've found the problem. Fortunately, her level was high enough that she quickly found the root of the problem. The Omega effect was suppressing the dark divinity. It seemed like it needed Batman more urgently. Was it because Batman still had part of the Omega effect in his soul? Before Darkseid was resurrected, Thea could not be sure if the powers of the same origin were attracting each other. At that moment, an image appeared in his mind of Superman and Batman, two cute versions of themselves, shooting daggers at each other. That would definitely be a beautiful scene. However, this guy who appeared out of nowhere messed up her plan. Originally, she only needed to obtain the divinity. She could use that instant of darkness connection to sever the other one. This plan of hers was very mature and easy to execute. Now, she had to change the steps. Do you still remember Darkseid's Omega Ray? Oh, right, you've studied it before. The ray you studied back then was only a part of the whole. This thing I call the Omega effect is more optimistic about you. Here's the problem. Other than the divinity, you'll also get a new ability. If you meet bad guys in the future and don't want to kill them, you can throw them into the time stream. Thea was stuck. In essence, This was worse than killing people. Pretend I didn't say the last sentence. What do you think? Batman looked around. This place makes me very uncomfortable. Can we go back and talk? Or do we have to carry this guy's body? He asked, pointing at Darkseid's body. Thea nodded. It didn't matter to her now. Since Batman felt uncomfortable, she didn't care. Her fingers quickly drew 3 dotted lines. The anti-life equation was the first to be picked out. At present, no one in this world was suitable for it. She flicked her middle finger at the equation and threw it directly back to the wall of origin to wait for the fated one. I'll be back. Thea led Batman back to his cave as the wasteland wolf trembled in fear. Miss Thea, long time no see. The old butler was as friendly as ever. When no one was looking, Thea used the white lamp to inject a trace of life into the old butler. It was difficult to live for another 500 years, but it was easy for him to live for 100 years. The old butler only felt that something had changed in his body, but he didn't know what it was. Thea gave him a friendly smile, and the old butler nodded slightly to express his gratitude. Seeing that they were about to talk, the old butler poured a cup of coffee for each of them and left with a smile. What is this omega effect? Batman asked after the old butler left for a long time. The omega effect is what we call it. Although I know the correct name for it, it can't be described in the current language. The meaning is the Greek letter omega, which symbolizes the end of everything. Thea was hinting at something. Think about it. If you become a god, your family will also benefit. You will also have more power to protect the world, and not just limited to Gotham. How do I do that? The dark divinity is easy, but the omega effect favors you more. But you're not Clark, you're just a normal person. Once you come into contact with that power, you'll be thrown into time turbulence. I've come up with a plan. To gain the recognition of the omega effect, you need a power that ends everything. To put it simply, you're going to be a sacrifice. Thea's words were shocking. However, Batman wasn't too surprised. He knew that Thea didn't mean for him to commit suicide. He waited patiently for her to continue. I'm not sure how Darkseid obtained the omega effect, but if you want to be recognized, you have to make a sacrifice, and this sacrifice can only be you. Everything started because of you, and it will end because of you. Batman began to wonder if he should cut off a finger or a kidney. After knowing Thea and Diana for so many years, he had done a lot of research on gods. All injuries could be healed. Fortunately, Thea didn't ask him to harm himself. I want you to face a nightmare. It's a nightmare that belongs to you alone. Only you can deal with this guy, so he's going to be a sacrifice. Sure, when do we go? Batman was duty-bound to fight evil. Get ready. I'll set up the teleportation channel. See you tomorrow. After saying that, she ran to meet her cheap brother, Daniel. The next day, near the evening, a large crowd gathered in the Bat Cave. Almost everyone in the Bat family was there. 4 Robins, 2 Batgirls, the retired Batwoman, Batwing, and Catwoman, who were still friends even after they broke up. They were all in their combat suits, waiting as if they were facing a great enemy. Batman didn't want too many people involved in his affairs, but the old butler had informed a few of them. No matter what they thought of Bruce before, they were all here to help, even if they had to die in battle. Thea was shocked when she came over. Why were there so many people? Daniel, who came with her, was even more panicked. He had been forced to work overtime by Miss Heartless all night. Finally, he managed to cut out a small piece of the original mess of a nightmare and used it as the venue for today's event. However, he didn't expect so many people to be present. He was afraid that it was part of his sleeping demon trial. He hurriedly explained to Thea, "Are all these people going in? I don't think I prepared such a big passage." Thea was still maintaining her sister posture. She gave him a look that said, "Don't panic. It's not a big problem." At the same time, Batman was also looking at her. His eyes were asking, "Who's this good-looking guy beside you?" "This is Daniel, my future brother." The Endless Family was an extremely secretive organization. They shouldn't stand in front of the public, especially not in front of ordinary people. Therefore, she had a headache about how to introduce them. She could only give a vague explanation. Chapter 1060. Everyone was shocked. Future younger brother? They automatically imagined that Moira would give birth to another child in the future. Especially Daniel, who looked a little anxious. He seemed to be a few decades older than Thea. This future seemed to be very far away. Thea did not know if she should say this in front of so many people. If too many people knew about this secret, it would not be a secret anymore. Batman was also helpless. A group of people wanted to accompany him to the depths of hell. He really could not refuse. "I'm really sorry. It's my fault." The old butler admitted his mistake very frankly. Thea had always respected the old and loved the young. Naturally, she would not do anything to the old butler. "It's not that I want to hide it from everyone. This matter can only be done by Bruce. This is a nightmare that belongs solely to him," Thea explained. "Then can't we just provide help and let him finish the job in the end?" Only Damien could speak to the young lady so familiarly. Thea retorted in annoyance, "Do you think this is a game? The last hit will give 30% of the experience, right? You're addicted to it. Bruce can only face it himself. This is not a private matter. If he wins, then the universe under our feet will have the initiative. If he loses..." The consequences of losing were self-evident. "Can't we bring even one helper?" Barbara asked. "I'm not sure how much you know, but I'll say it again. Bruce is going to deal with a dark version of himself. The same experience, the same wisdom. That dark version of Bruce knows all of you. Forgive me for being blunt, but do you really think that you can help and not cause some kind of hindrance? Won't the enemy turn around and use you as a trump card against Bruce?" Thea's words were very straightforward. They were not angry. Even if they had been independent for a long time, they did not think that they had surpassed their mentor. Moreover, the more they chased, the more they realized the gap between them. "What characteristics does this dark version of me have?" Batman asked. "He's a complete copy of you. Starting from that small alley, to the Union of Assassins, and the series of activities after that, he's exactly the same as you. Until a certain critical juncture, he made an extreme decision, which caused the difference between the two of you, and it only grew bigger and bigger." Batman was also a little confused. There seemed to be a lot of choices, and he didn't know which one to choose. In any case, it's not a fair competition. "I'll give you a hint. You can go with the one that you've locked up in the deepest part of the Batcave. He has something to do with this, so he can face this nightmare with you." Her hint might seem obscure to outsiders, such as Daniel, who did not understand. However, everyone in the room was an insider, and they only needed to think for a moment to understand what she was referring to. Nightwing was furious. "Bruce, you actually locked him up in the Batcave again? Have you forgotten the lesson from last time?" The rest of the people were also bewildered, fearful, resentful, and so on. Batman faced all the doubts with silence. He turned to Thea and asked, "Do we have to bring him along? You know very well that he's the only one in this world who can defeat Batman. If you go alone, you'll be sending yourself to your death." Thea spoke as if it was a matter of course. "Anyway, I've already told you my suggestion. Let Daniel take you there. I still have to discuss the matter of the Apocalypse Star. I only hope that you remember that this is not your problem alone, but represents the entire multiverse. Any decision you make will affect the future and the present." The young mistress waved her hand. "Daniel is more familiar with that place than I am. If you have any questions, ask him. I'm going to discuss some things with Diana." After saying that, she ran off in a hurry. Although she said that she was going to the new creator planet to discuss things, no one knew how to draw the line between public and private. It was really hard to say whether she would take the opportunity to do something private. Batman looked at Daniel speechlessly, and Daniel looked back at him with the same expression. He rejected everyone's offer to follow him and led Daniel deeper into the cave. At first, it was very quiet. As they walked, Batman suddenly asked, "Who is she to you?" "Do you mean Death?" "She's my guide," Daniel answered straightforwardly. "Then what's with the little brother? Maybe we're a kind of brother and sister of a higher level." Batman muttered the word death, and his consciousness went into a trance. He felt that Thea seemed to be looking at him from afar. Do you wish to have a sister like her? Daniel seemed to understand what he meant. He lowered his head and chuckled. Halfway through, he heard a soft snort in his mind. He quickly changed his words. Of course I do. It would be my honor. Batman looked at him in disdain and stopped asking him for information. After circling around a few times, they arrived in front of a cell. The cell was made of pure metal. The back of 3 of the walls was made of mountain rocks. Only the front of the cell had a thick metal door. You have supernatural powers too, right? If I let him out, will you be able to control the situation if something unexpected happens? Daniel, who was now a universe-level individual, looked inside the cell and frowned. So this is the guy. I can do it. Batman entered a complicated password into the control panel on the wall. After that, he did a blood test and pupil test, as well as 3 private questions. Finally, the cell door creaked open slowly. Stinky Bat. Your actions today are a little beyond my expectations. Ha 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 ha. The clown, who was wearing a purple suit, was sitting in the cell with a pale face. He had carved many words of unknown meaning on the wall. At this moment, there was a hint of confusion in his maniacal laughter. Batman told him the whole story. It was exactly what Thea had told him, without any guesses or thoughts of his own. Ha, save the world. That's a matter for you heroes. I'm not going. Close the cell, I still want to sleep. Ha ha ha. The clown lay on the bed and did not intend to escape at all. Can we not bring this guy along? Batman felt a headache coming. Fighting alongside the clown? This was more nightmarish than a nightmare. Daniel thought for a moment. I suggest you do as Death said. She is omniscient and omnipotent. She traverses the timeline and surpasses all the concepts of multidimensional life that you know. There is no one in the multiverse who is wiser and more powerful than her. Batman's face twitched. Doesn't your conscience hurt when you flatter her so openly? Do you have any shame? Silently labeling this guy as a bootlicker, Batman pointed at the clown and asked Daniel, isn't that my nightmare? Why do we have to bring him along? Does Thea mean that we have to deal with 2 enemies at the same time? Chapter 1061. Daniel thought for a while before pointing at the clown and said, analyzing the characteristics of the soul is actually 1. I don't know much about the soul, that's the domain of death. I can only see part of it through the dream. The guy you need to deal with isn't as rational and easy to communicate with as you. In my opinion, he's crazy, but he's a little like him. Batman and the clown were stunned. The clown might look crazy, but he had the fastest reaction. A stinky bat that has the clown's way of doing things? Ha ha, he laughed heartily, and the more he thought about it, the happier he became. He clenched his fists and smashed them against the wall. In the end, he laughed until he was out of breath and rolled on the ground. I want to see it, you must bring me to see it. Ha ha, a crazy bat. So this is my nightmare. Batman instantly understood Thea's purpose. He originally thought that he needed to deal with a high-tech version or a Kryptonian version. When Thea asked him to bring the clown along, he understood most of it. Now that he learned the truth from Daniel, he completely understood. Was he crazy in that world, crazier than the clown? Or was he as crazy as the clown? That was not important. Batman only knew that he needed to solve this nightmare himself. Whether it was based on the rules that Thea mentioned or his own life's creed, he had to defeat this crazy bat. He grabbed the clown who was laughing on the ground and turned to Daniel. I'm ready, send me there. Daniel saw that the clown did not look like he was ready, but he did not say anything. He pulled open the dreamscape and started searching according to a certain pattern. Soon, he found the deepest black line with the most connections. Using his ability, he separated 2 branches from the black line and handed them to Batman. Grab it, it will bring you to the dark multiverse. It's the heaviest darkness there. There's no hope, no redemption, and no luck. Everything you do will end up in the worst possible outcome. You must be mentally prepared. Batman grabbed the black line without hesitation. The clown grabbed the other one while laughing maniacally. The drag caught them off guard. Just as the 2 of them grabbed onto the black thread, they felt a strong force hooking onto their collars, and they were abruptly sucked into the darkness on the other side. Moving at high speed in the dark tunnel, Batman was silent while the Joker was extremely happy. His maniacal laughter hurt Batman's eardrums. He resisted the urge to kill the guy beside him several times. He knew that yelling at the clown to shut up was pointless. No one could make the clown shut up, so he could only listen helplessly. Fortunately, the passage wasn't long. After Batman's heart beat 45 times, they squeezed out of an extremely narrow space. Or perhaps it was more appropriate to throw it out. Batman stood on the ground and observed his surroundings. His gaze swept across the dilapidated buildings. He was trying his best to gather information. The clown, on the other hand, shook his head comically as he looked around. Batman didn't intend to hand over the weapon to the clown. The guy didn't actually have any proper weapons. He quickly picked up something that looked like a crowbar from the ground and swung it around. It was a little heavy, but it was passable. The two of them looked at each other. Batman felt a headache coming on. This guy wasn't Robin, he wouldn't listen to his orders. The best way for them to work together was to not work together. Let's do our own thing. Let's hope that Thea is really as accurate as that bootlicker said. They both snorted. One of them went east, and the other went west. However, one of them was careful as he bent down and moved stealthily, while the other swaggered as if he was afraid that others couldn't see him. Batman moved forward alone. He didn't need to look carefully to recognize that this was Gotham. It was different from the evil version of Earth 3. That place had a different development path from the beginning. He was very familiar with everything here. Every alley, every tall building, and every residential building. Although the alleys were now filled with rubble, half of the buildings had collapsed, and there were only rotting corpses left in the houses, he still recognized this place. There were very few survivors in this big city with a population of tens of millions. Normal people couldn't live here at all. Their normal work, studies, and other activities were completely stopped. There was only killing. Random killing without logic and without purpose. Batman quickly moved through the city. During a gang shootout, he kidnapped a peripheral member. Without saying a word, he beat up the gang member until his face was swollen. Only then did he start questioning him. In the end, Batman was shocked. This world had Batman, Superman, and the Justice League. Even the previous development path was similar to their world. The only thing missing was the omniscient and omnipotent character like Miss. The other aspects were completely different from the main world. If everything was normal, it should have been a very beautiful world. Unfortunately, one day, there was a drastic change. The Batman of this world couldn't take it anymore. He killed the Joker. The Joker's poisonous gas before he died infected Batman, causing him to completely transform into a madman who had lost all reason. After that, he killed Nightwing, Batgirl, Red Robin, and wiped out the Justice League. In the end, he called himself the Laughing Bat and wanted to use laughter to liberate this world. The original beauty was completely destroyed because of a single thought. In the end, it slipped into the abyss. Batman knocked out the gang member and ran deep into the city. For 3 consecutive days, he searched for the Laughing Bat's whereabouts. The Laughing Bat's whereabouts were unpredictable. Not many people had seen him, but his terrifying legend had been circulating in the local news. Batman ate some compressed food while taking out a map to analyze the Laughing Bat's movements. This was a freak who had the same life experience as him and the Joker's personality. He couldn't be judged by common sense. Batman's operation a day ago was almost discovered. The Joker's IQ didn't decrease after inhaling the Joker's poisonous gas. Instead, his rationality was mixed with madness. Everything was so unpredictable. After finishing the food in a few bites, Batman cleaned up the scene and headed to the next suspicious location. As for whether the Joker ate well or slept well for the past 3 days, he didn't care. The Joker was like a fish in water here. There was no need to worry at all. On the 15th day of entering this dark world, Batman finally saw the information of his good friend the Joker. This guy had gathered a large group of gang members and headed to Wayne's old house. After smashing and robbing, they set fire to the old house. Then, they went to the ruined Gotham police station. Legend had it that this was the Laughing Bat's favorite place to hang out. Batman hid inside a tall building and used binoculars to observe the police station not far away. The Joker didn't participate in this operation. He rallied all the gang members and then went into hiding to observe everything. Chapter 1062. The big screen in the central square of the city lit up. At the same time, all the players that could receive the signal automatically switched to the same channel. Ha ha, now let's play a game, me and this. The clown was still dressed as usual. He was in a purple suit and bright lips. He scratched his head as if he couldn't figure out what to call the laughing bat. This Batman is even more ridiculous. Gotham is mine, and you're just a clumsy imitation. Remember my words. The clown was still blabbering on, but Batman had already found the laughing bat's tracks. The TV station was just a smokescreen. Wayne's old mansion, Gotham police station were all traps. It was just a matter of who couldn't resist jumping into them first. The three people with the same high IQ didn't take the bait. He didn't know what the clown was doing, but through some clues, Batman had already found the enemy's tracks. Like a black ghost, he quickly moved through the ruins of the city and quickly found his target. This was a chemical plant that had been abandoned for many years. There was not a single light in the middle of the night. Compared to the chaos in the city center, this place was as silent as a tomb. Batman found 5 security devices around the perimeter. There were almost no blind spots between them, but he still carefully went around them. The chemical plant occupied a large area, so he had to speed up. Judging from the traces on the ground, the clown might have already broken into it. Batman was afraid that the clown would defeat the laughing bat, his nightmare. If this happened, not only would it affect the matter of the divine throne, it would also shake Batman's confidence. If insanity defeated rationality, then the creed that he had held onto for so many years would be meaningless. This was something that Batman didn't want to see. But he also didn't want to see the clown lying in a pool of blood, defeated by an even crazier version of himself. This would make him feel guilty, as if he was the one who killed the clown. His heart was worried, but Batman was still rational. He didn't lose his vigilance and carefully walked into the depths of the chemical plant. The factory had been abandoned for a long time, and a simple tunnel led to the depths of the ground. Batman checked it and slowly slipped in. The tunnel was very long, as if it was hundreds of meters underground. After walking out of the winding tunnel, it was connected to a group of underground caves. Batman was a little stunned. He did not know if there was such a large group of caves under Gotham in his original world. The lighting here was very poor. Fortunately, the surrounding stone pillars emitted fluorescent light. However, after several refractions, the light seemed a little distorted when it fell into his eyes. Batman simply observed the environment and listened carefully. The faint sound of metal hitting metal could be heard in the wind. He determined the location and found that the fight was not far from him. Batman quietly ran over. Trash. Hee, human scum, freak. It is a tragedy for a scourge like you to live in this world. A voice that was slightly louder than a whisper sounded. The voice was soft, but it was filled with power. Even if one was a little far away, they could still hear it clearly. Batman hid behind a large stone pillar and watched. The clown in the middle of the field was completely defeated. His purple suit was covered in blood. He was lying on the ground with blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. His left sleeve was torn and there was a large swollen part of his elbow. Standing in front of him was a tall and skinny man with a black leather jacket wrapped around his thin body. His eyes were covered with a metal eye patch that was filled with sharp spikes. He looked ferocious and terrifying, like a demon that had crawled out from hell. His mouth broke through the limits of human physiology and opened to both sides. His bright red gums and white teeth made people shudder uncontrollably. This was Batman, who had absorbed the clown's poison. He now called himself Laughing Bat. Unlike Batman's muscular body, this guy's body was thinner. His jawbone protruded downwards and his sharp chin looked very evil. Laughing Bat held a metal rod in his hand and hit the clown's cheek. Human scum. Maggot of society. Freak. Hehe, I don't know which world you came from, but I killed you before. I broke your neck. I have to say, that feeling was wonderful. Hehe, then he hit the clown again. The left side of the clown's face was completely smashed. Several teeth flew into the air. The clown responded with an even louder laugh. "You're a complete idiot. You've always been like this. Ha, 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 a Batman without rules is still Batman. This game of yours is not fun at all." With a clang, Laughing Bat seemed to feel that using a weapon was not enough. He threw away the metal rod. The clown stood in front of him for a long time and felt very uncomfortable. His old personality seemed to be showing signs of coming back. He suppressed the discomfort and smirked viciously. He swung his fists and punched the clown. "Keep laughing, hehe, I'll tell you. Remove those childish rules and self-restraint. There will only be one truth left, and that is Batman will win." He attacked the clown madly. His fists were soon broken and turned flesh was exposed, but he did not care. As the victim, the clown was in an even worse state. There was not a single piece of flesh on his face that was intact. His skin was bleeding, and one of his eyes was blind. However, the clown was even happier after being beaten up. He kept yelling for Laughing Bat to hit him harder. "It's over. I don't have time to play games with you, you bastard." Hehe, Laughing Bat was tired after beating him up for a long time. He had lost the self-control that Batman had, so his long-term training was meaningless. His stamina was far from his peak. Laughing Bat took out an old-fashioned revolver and pointed it at the clown's head. "Do you recognize this gun? It's the gun that killed Thomas and Martha Wayne. It's your honor to die by this gun." Just as he was about to pull the trigger, he realized that the clown had also taken out a gun and pointed it at his heart. Just as he was about to say something to buy time, the clown pulled the trigger. With a click, the clown's expected death from being shot in the heart did not happen. Instead, a small flag appeared at the front of the clown's gun. Under the breeze of the underground cave, the small flag fluttered in the wind and made a soft sound as if it was laughing at something. "Ha ha, idiot." Laughing Bat was slightly stunned, then he laughed too. He laughed so hard that he was rocking back and forth. He pointed the gun at the clown and said, "I have to say, you're very suitable for the opening. You're more energetic than the clown I met, hehe, but I'm the joke, do you understand? Hurry up and do it." "Ha ha," Laughing Bat's smile widened. "I'm glad you've finally gotten over it." Just as his finger was about to pull the trigger, there was a gust of wind behind his ear. The clown's laughter also reached his ears. "Ha ha, idiot, I'm not talking about you." Chapter 1063. Who's behind me? As soon as this thought appeared, Batman suddenly jumped out and punched the back of his head. Amidst the dizziness, the Joker felt an even deadlier sense of danger. He took out a dagger and stabbed it into the Laughing Bat's abdomen. The leather suit was sturdy, but it couldn't withstand the damage from a close-range stab. The dagger stabbed into the Joker's abdomen and quickly twisted twice. Without waiting for the Laughing Bat to counterattack, the Joker quickly crawled 2 steps and left the attack range. He slowly stood up with the help of the rock wall. Although he looked terrible, his face was crooked, his body was covered in wounds, and he was a little limp, it didn't affect his mobility. He had experienced worse injuries than this, and the wounds on his face and body didn't matter. On the other side, the battle between Batman and the Laughing Bat was in full swing. In this battle, Batman used all his strength and fighting skills. He wanted to prove to himself that reason was definitely stronger than madness. His stamina was greatly depleted, and he was ambushed and stabbed. Even after being weakened several times, the Laughing Bat was still not easy to deal with. He was Batman. He had the same life path, the same learning experience, and he had no bottom line. In the middle of the battle, the Laughing Bat suddenly jumped out of the circle and pointed his gun at the Joker. Batman could only fly over to save him. The result wasn't too surprising. The Laughing Bat had already guessed what he would do. The muzzle of the gun was already there, and it was too late for Batman to dodge. He could only let himself fall to the side the moment the bullet left the chamber. The bullet hit his right rib and lodged in his body. The 3 of them distanced themselves from each other once again. The Laughing Batman threw away the commemorative revolver that only had 1 bullet. He took out 2 bat darts with both hands and assumed a defensive stance. Huff. Huff. Hee hee. It's hard to imagine that Batman would one day fight alongside the Joker. Hee hee. I'll bury you two together. It'll be interesting to be able to kill both of you at the same time. Hee hee. Hee hee. The two bat darts were like two daggers, spinning rapidly between his palms. It was obvious that he was extremely excited, as if he wanted to tear the two of them apart alive. The Joker looked at him and then looked at Batman. He seemed to be comparing which one was more pleasing to the eye. Haha, what a three-way match. Is Batman forming a team? Batman was silent for a moment, his eyes cold. I'll hit his leg. The clown could not stop laughing. His pale face was filled with madness. He also took out a dagger. I'm going to slash his face. The two of them, one on the left and one on the right, even if it was their first time working together, or perhaps their last time working together, it had to be said that the two of them had great chemistry. The Joker was the most aggressive. Although he looked crazy, he was able to occasionally defeat Batman in one-on-one duels. This meant that his close combat skills were not low. He just did not like to use them. According to him, it wasn't that you defeated me, but that I didn't want to play anymore. Now that he was fighting side by side with Batman, he had to admit that he liked this game very much. It was as if there were springs under his feet. His dagger moved up and down, causing the laughing bat to be flustered. Batman saw an opening and punched his enemy in the chest. Then, he grabbed the laughing bat's elbow and used a reverse joint skill to break the other's arm. Unfortunately, the laughing bat, who was also familiar with joint skills, saw through his trick and kicked Batman's wound. Although he injured Batman again, the price for the laughing bat's attack was a bloody gash from the bottom to the top of his chin. The gash formed a bright red cross with his mouth that was already wide open to his ears. Through the gash, one could see his exposed gums and tongue. It was not a human tongue at all. It was more like a reptile's tongue. It stuck out from the wound and licked up and down. The smell of blood. Hee hee, looks like you need the children to play with you. He quickly rushed to the left. Batman threw 3 darts, but the laughing bat's willpower was very strong. He ignored the darts and did not slow down at all. In the end, after 3 fingers on his left hand were cut off, his whole body slammed into the wall. The door opened with a rumble. There was a high frequency of footsteps, accompanied by the sound of iron chains hitting the ground. It sounds like there are puppies here. Haha, I'm dying of laughter. This bat cave is much more fun than your place. The clown said nonchalantly. Batman called him, the clown. What? I'll say this first. Don't ever mention what happened today again. Haha. Amidst the clown's laughter, a few uninvited guests ran around the corner and appeared in sight. Amidst the guffaws, 3 guys who looked more like beasts than humans jumped at Batman and the clown on all fours. They were wearing the same clothes as the Robins: red vests, green gloves, and yellow capes. They also had an R symbol on their chest. However, they were now like rabid dogs, pouncing at the two, especially Batman. Go and catch up with your good sons. I cloned them using their genes. Hee hee, you must like them. Look at how excited you are. It suits your taste, doesn't it? The laughing bat and the 3 cloned Robins were ready to pincer attack the 2 of them. You take the front and I'll take the back. Batman quickly made arrangements. The clown did not like the Robins. He never liked them. Therefore, he arranged for the clown to continue fighting the laughing bat. Meanwhile, he flew back to deal with the 3 clones who had lost all rationality and showed no signs of intelligence. Where's Damien? What did you do to Damien? He asked as he dealt with the attacks of the cloned Robins. Father, hee hee, are you calling me? A familiar figure walked out of a small cave not far away. It was the 10-year-old Damien. There was a bullet hole in his head and his heart. The only thing that was still moving was his corpse. The voice came from a vocal device located in his throat. Father, I'm the best Robin, right? I'm so jealous of Nightwing. He can get Father's love, but I can't. Hee hee, Father looks at me strangely. Hee hee, could it be that he doesn't like his own son and likes an outsider? Damien, who was already a corpse, made some movements from time to time. Disappointment and anger were all mechanically imitated. The range of his movements was large and exaggerated. In addition, the voice simulated by the computer was a little distorted. It sounded in this cave that was filled with laughter and laughter. It made people feel a chill down their backs. How is it? Batman. I killed Nightwing, the Batgirl, and all your relatives. Hee, aren't you happy? You finally got rid of these guys. This is something you've always wanted to do but never did, right? The laughing bat kept disturbing his mind with words. Chapter 1064. Not only that, but the laughing bat was also controlling Damien's corpse to spout nonsense. He was extremely busy. Unfortunately, he had miscalculated. Batman would definitely be furious if he suddenly encountered such a situation. However, with his experience on Earth 3 and the long preparation he had made, he would not be angry even if 100 Martha Winds jumped out in the next second. The 3 Robin clones did not have any tactics to speak of. They were just 3 wild beasts that attacked based on their instincts. They relied on their small bodies, fast speed, and sharp teeth and claws to deal with Batman. He only used a few rounds to figure out the tricks of these guys. Other than disgusting himself, they were not much of a threat. He bent down to avoid the pouncing attacks of 2 Robin clones. Then, he quickly took 2 steps forward, grabbed the left arm of the remaining clone, and smashed it into the wall of the cave. The entire cave buzzed from the impact, and the clone Robin fainted as expected. With 1 less clones, he was even more relaxed. After 2 rounds, he sent another one flying with a flying kick. The last one was still crazy, but it was nothing in the face of human intelligence. He was thrown towards the laughing bat by Batman, and the latter slit his throat and killed him. Once again, it was 2 against 1. The laughing bat had used up too much of his stamina and was no match for him. He threw the dart in his hand, turned around, and ran. At the same time, he controlled the corpse Damien to stop the enemy. Father, save me, help me, father. The voice that was extremely similar to Damien's made Batman slightly stunned. He could not help but slow down for half a beat. Meanwhile, the laughing bat ran out of the tunnel behind Damien. Batman looked at Damien, whose eyes were bloodshot, body stiff, and skin purple. He still felt anger coming from the depths of his heart. He went around the puppet and chased down the tunnel. While Batman was chasing the enemy, the clown laughed wantonly. Then, he ran towards the tunnel on the other side without looking back. Batman pretended that he did not see it. To him, the laughing bat was the biggest threat. He could catch the clown later. Moreover, after many interdimensional battles, he knew very well that there was no way to return to this place without supernatural power. No matter how smart the clown was, he would not be able to create a teleportation spell. If he wanted to stay in this crazy world, it was not impossible. Due to his strict training, Han Fei's stamina was much better than the laughing bat's. Before they even entered the building, Han Fei had already caught up to them. Stop right there. With a flying pounce, he knocked down the laughing bat. After that, he gave the bat 2 more punches and grabbed the metal blindfold on the bat's face with both hands. Together with the blindfold, he pulled off the bat's helmet. The cackling bat under the mask barely looked human. Where its eyes should have been, even its eye sockets had disappeared. Its eyelids were sewn shut with a thin thread, as if it was born without eyes. Batman was disgusted and punched him twice more in the face. The other party's laughter did not disappear. Instead, it became even louder. Hee. You won't kill me. Although it's hard for you to hold on, your bottom line is still there. If you let me go, I will kill your son, your family, your friends, and everyone you care about. Hee, you and I both know this. But, what are you going to do about it? Do you dare to kill me? The laughing bat's figure overlapped with the clown that Han Fei had caught countless times. However, the clown was just playing a game. Everything in the eyes of the clown was just a game. The laughing bat was different. He was vicious and hated everything about Batman. He wanted to destroy Batman and turn him into himself. Batman raised his fist high as if he was weighing something. The laughing bat had completely given up on resisting. In order to force him to make a choice, it even threw its 2 bat darts far away. It was completely defenseless. It looked up at him with its blank face, and the corners of its mouth were even wider. Think about your loved ones. They will die because of your weakness. Come and kill me, come on. Your son is lying in a pool of blood. All of this could have been avoided because you let me go, Do you hear the cries of the citizens of Gotham? Come on. Come and kill me. At the last moment, Bruce's intelligence gained the upper hand. He stopped laughing, but his words touched Batman's heart even more. Just as he was thinking about Batman's dilemma, he was hit by a huge fist and fainted. Batman made sure that he was completely unconscious before standing up. How sad. Maybe one day I won't be able to hold my bottom line, but not today. After that, he took a few deep breaths before speaking to the air around him. Are you guys still here? Daniel's figure appeared. I'm here, but Death isn't. She can't enter here. Batman was too lazy to think about the logic behind this. He pointed at the laughing bat on the ground. Do you guys have a way to deal with this guy? Daniel seemed to be conversing with a lady from another world. He turned around and said, "This guy is best left to you. He's your deepest nightmare. Let's go. Bring him back with me." After that, Daniel pulled Batman and brought the laughing bat back to their original world. At the same time, Lady Thea was holding a three-way meeting in the underworld. The new Genesis planet and the Apocalypse planet were discussing the future. The underworld acted as the middleman to facilitate this meeting. The main topic was Olean inheriting the throne of the Apocalypse planet. The new Genesis planet lost 4 deity positions because of the departure of the Heavenly Father. At the same time, the Justice deity position was severely damaged. If Olean left, he would take another deity position with him. The Apocalypse planet was also severely damaged. Darkseid didn't stay on the Apocalypse planet. He took the evil deity position and escaped from the god's domain. Although Thea knew where he was going, she didn't chase after him. The remaining power, darkness, massacre, and tyranny were all taken by the messy people that the Wasteland Wolf mentioned. Together with Calabarca's death, they lost 6 deity positions. If he brought Olean back to inherit the throne, tyranny would automatically return to the Apocalypse planet. Violence would also be dragged into the equation. This was equivalent to losing 4 deity positions. It seemed like they still had the upper hand, but that wasn't the case in actual combat. Darkseid's departure was much more serious than the departure of the Heavenly Father from the new Genesis planet. The new Genesis planet had Diana standing on the front lines. She also had 5 deity positions. Although she was a little weak compared to other deities of the same level, she had no difficulty defeating the Wasteland Wolf and the others. Furthermore, the key wasn't how good Diana was at fighting. It was because there was someone behind her. The Great Plains Wolf, who was originally happily preparing to inherit the throne, instantly shrank back when he saw Sia's seemingly well-intentioned but actually threatening tone when she asked for his personal opinion in a flat tone. He forcefully swallowed back a mouthful of blood and patted his chest to promise that he would definitely be a good leader for 3 generations. Chapter 1065. The key to the problem now was Olean himself. If he was unwilling, nobody would force him. He locked himself in a quiet room and thought about this carefully. Thea was not in a hurry. She led Diana around the underworld. When Daniel returned with Batman, Olean had just made up his mind. "If I have no other choice, I'm willing to accept this burden," he said passionately as if he was about to go to the execution ground. The Great Plains Wolf pursed his lips. He wanted to say something, but he quickly shrunk back under Thea's gaze. In order to show the historic nature of this meeting, the leaders of the new Creator planet and the Apocalypse planet signed an indefinite ceasefire agreement. The underworld would be the witnesses. Sia could not say for sure if Aurelian would be corrupted by the dark forces in the future. Fate did not adhere to a fixed principle. Everything could slide into the abyss because of a small factor. However, in the short term, the Heavenly Father and Darkseid had both retired from the stage of history, and both sides welcomed complete peace. Thea had just sent off the Apocalypse planet when Batman and the others walked in. Diana greeted him. Ever since she became the God King in the new Creator planet, she had not seen her Earth companions for a long time. This was the first time she saw the laughing bat. She had to admit that it looked evil and dark. "Bruce, are you ready?" Thea asked. "I need power to prevent myself from walking into the abyss. But do you really think I'm a good candidate? You've seen it for yourself. Here's me." He pointed at the laughing bat on the ground. Do you remember the other world we've been to? There's a famous saying there. The greater the power, the greater the responsibility. I don't think there's anyone more suitable than you for the Dark God's position. You're Gotham's Dark Knight, she said with a smile. Batman did not know whether to laugh or cry. That's all nonsense from the media. I haven't heard that in a long time. I still want to see someone. Send me to her. I owe her too much. After saying that, he gave her an address in a low voice. Thea glanced at Earth and observed it for a while. She pretended to be enlightened and gossiped to Diana. Valkyrie's eyes lit up. The young mistress laughed maniacally. Betting the bat on her was absolutely safe. You should go and deal with your own private affairs first. After finding the target, he activated the teleportation and sent Batman back to Gotham. Batman's clothes were tattered, his abdomen was bleeding, and he refused to receive treatment no matter what. The teleportation was very precise. They were on the top floor of a tall building, and the building not far away was Gotham Art Gallery. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that there was a certain someone standing on the top floor with a pair of binoculars, observing the security guards of the gallery. Catwoman, who had come out to scout the area tonight, was startled by the sudden appearance of a living person beside her. When she saw that it was Batman, she breathed a sigh of relief. However, she, who was known for her sharp eyes, still saw Batman's injuries. Are you okay? You've been gone for so many days. Did you just come back? She was the same when Batman and Daniel left. However, the two of them had already broken up, so she did not say much in front of a bunch of juniors. Catwoman could not understand why Batman, who was in such a pitiful state, came here to look for her. Was he here to educate her again? She cleared her throat. Don't tell me he's here to lecture me again. Let me help you back to treat your injuries first. Thea, who was hiding in the underworld and secretly observing, twitched her mouth. Batman's dozens of psychological classics were not for nothing. His pitiful act was superb. Batman's next sentence stunned Catwoman. He used the way he addressed her when they were alone. Kitten. Bat. Catwoman replied casually. The first time I met you on that ship. Catwoman frowned slightly. We met on the street. Batman was stubborn. It was on the ship. You stole the diamond ring. However, after I got the ring back, I bought it for myself. I've kept it for many years. Catwoman was even more confused. What are you trying to say? I even knew from the beginning that I would need it one day. Batman took off his mask after he finished speaking. I've always needed this ring, just like I need you. He caressed Catwoman's cheek gently. The rain began to fall. Catwoman seemed to have thought of something. She looked at the ground, not wanting Bruce to see her expression. Bruce took off Catwoman's mask. The two of them stood in the rain. The rain soaked their hair. Selina, I'm so scared, Bruce. Catwoman's voice was a little choked. Selina, I love you. Bruce knelt on one knee and took out the diamond ring that he had kept for many years. Marry me. Bruce, who was always able to predict things, was now a little uncertain. He did not know what was waiting for him next. He. Catwoman could no longer maintain her expression. Her originally tense face was replaced by joy. She wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes, but she could not control her tears. I'm willing. I've been waiting for this day. I'm willing. As she spoke, she threw herself into Bruce's arms. The two of them kissed passionately in the pouring rain. Thea, who was in the underworld, nodded to Diana. I'm afraid that guy won't be coming back today. Let's talk about the guardhood tomorrow. Batman did not return to his Bat Cave. Instead, he stayed at Catwoman's apartment for a night. He removed the bullet, cleaned the wound, and bandaged it. Although he knew that Thea could heal him with a breath, he still enjoyed Catwoman's gentle care. The next day, following his call, Thea pulled them together to the underworld. The extravagance of the underworld caught Catwoman's attention. She could not help but want to take something home out of her professional habit. She only stopped when Thea coughed. I'm just looking. We're good friends. I was just curious. You're very rich here. She was trying to explain her previous actions. Thea waved her hand to show that she did not mind. After exchanging some pleasantries, she looked at Bruce and waited for him to make the final decision. If you think it's okay, then let's do it. If I can't control myself, then kill me and tell Damien that I sacrificed myself in that dark world. Catwoman was shocked. She did not know that it would be so dangerous. She looked at Thea nervously as if she wanted to hear what she had to say. Thea was speechless. These righteous people all had this problem. Olean was like that. Batman was like that. Even Diana was like that back then. How big of a deal was it? It was a matter of life and death. Fusing with the Guardhood was simple. However, it was more troublesome to take into account the Omega effect. If she gave the Omega effect directly to Batman, he would be instantly sent into the timeline. Nightwing and the others would have to start preparing for the second Battle of the Cape. Chapter 1066. Thea's idea was to bring them to the vanishing point. That was the end of time, and the Omega effect could not reach there. First, fuse with the deity position, then fuse with the Omega effect. She grabbed a small cloud of black, translucent gas in the palm of her hand. Are you ready? After getting the signal, she directly inserted the deity position into Batman's body. His whole body went limp in an instant. Fortunately, Batman's willpower was high enough to endure the numbness. His face was red, and he was afraid that he would cry out. That would be too embarrassing. When he saw Superman fusing with the deity position, it was easy. It was not so painful. As if she knew what he was thinking, Thea explained, "Don't compare yourself to Clark. His body has already reached that level. The deity position is just a promotion for him. It has little effect." It had to be said that the Kryptonians had a cheat system. Superman fusing with the deity position was like going to the hospital for an infusion. He could leave after the infusion, but Batman's was like a major surgery. He could not get out of bed without lying down for 10 days or half a month. Thea did not immediately cut off his connection with the dark multiverse. She directly jumped from the mortal level to the demigod level to become a new god. This process was a huge leap in the nature of life. If the basic hardware was not good enough, it would be useless no matter how strong one's willpower was. Death Knell had suffered a lot before, but with her help, he barely managed to survive. Batman had a relative advantage. The dark multiverse could help share some of the pressure. Thea put pressure on the deity position, and unilaterally accelerated his body's transformation process. Seeing that the fusion process was about to end, she took out the holy sword. "Bear with it. I'm going to cut off your connection with the other side. I'm afraid the final push for the deity position will be very painful." Looking at Thea holding the shiny sword as if she was going to cut something from his body, Batman felt a chill down his spine. But he could not care less at this time. He endured it and nodded. "Give me some of your dream force." Thea ordered Daniel as if he was her subordinate. Daniel was used to being ordered around by her. He did not even think about it and divided a part of his dream force into the holy sword. Thea promptly left the vanishing point and the universe, standing on a grander perspective as she watched the dark multiverse that was constantly in contact. There were countless thick and thin threads connecting the two universes. Unsurprisingly, they were the people of the Bat tribe. They were the first humans to be corrupted by the darkness. The place with the densest and most frequent connections was Gotham. Thea spent some time tracing back along the vanishing point and finally found the most basic connection in the mess. That was the source of everything. When Batman completed 80 to 90% of the modification, she found the right spot and swung her sword. The sword light looked like it was slashing at nothing, but with the help of the dream power, it had crossed the distance of time and space. It had come to the boundary between universes. A giant hand reached out from the fog as if it wanted to grab the sword light. Thea laughed mockingly. With a flip of her wrist, she directly slashed a bloody wound on the side of the giant hand. Then, she swung her sword from another angle. Compared to the huge size of the two universes, an extremely thin but resilient thread was too insignificant. It was cut in half by the holy sword that was imbued with dream force. There seemed to be waves of angry curses coming from the black fog, but it did not spread out. Thea simply ignored the other party. It seemed that because of her attack, she had broken some kind of unspoken rule. The other party did not show any signs of weakness. Numerous threads were sent directly into the multiverse, trying to increase the connection between the two. Yo, you're not afraid of death. Thea swung her sword and several threads were cut. In the past, she did not care if it was because she was not strong enough. Now that she was strong enough, the other party still dared to cause trouble under her nose. That was intolerable. She turned around and ordered Daniel, activate the previous location. Daniel couldn't figure out why she looked like she was about to start a full-scale war. This wasn't the plan, right? However, he did not have time to think. He directly activated the setup in the Laughing Bat world. There was a sudden flash of light in the fog-like world of darkness. Although it was very weak, 1/10 of the nightmare had been cleared. Daniel could already mobilize a part of the Dream Force, gathering the power of the multiverse to affect this world. Thea also solidified the rules of this parallel universe. Unless one was stronger than her, there was no way to rewrite the rules. From now on, they would no longer sink into depravity and pain. Not all choices were the worst. Something called hope began to grow in the world of darkness. Thea's actions angered the other party. Barbatus, who was wearing a black hood and had huge bat wings on his back, appeared from the depths of the darkness. He let out a soundless roar, as if he was reprimanding Thea for breaking the rules of the game. The young mistress did not care at all. This guy was only at the peak of the multiverse. If not for the fusion of the universes, she could have killed him now. She pointed the tip of her sword at the other party. If you want to fight, then I will fight. Barbatus did not understand her personality and chose to retreat for the time being. Although Thea lit a lamp in his territory, the passage between the two worlds was not closed. At most, he changed from the attacking party to the defending party. The relationship between the two universes was like the journey to the west. Whether Tang Sanzang went to the west to retrieve the scriptures or Buddha sent the scriptures to the Tang of the east, it did not have much of an impact on the outcome. Thea's actions did not cross the line. The few onlookers only expressed a limited amount of attention and then looked away. Barbatus retreated with hatred, and Thea returned to Batman's side. The heavy shackles were cut off. If he was still immortal, he would not be troubled by nightmares anymore. Now, it was even easier. His human body was remodeled from a deep level, and all the hidden injuries were removed. The traces of time faded from Bruce's face, and his face glowed again. Hang in there, Bruce. Diana stood not far away and cheered him on. She could see that the fusion of the deity position had reached the final stage. Whether he would maintain the suppression of the deity position or be controlled by it depended on this final step. Thea was not very worried. Although Bruce took a big step, it should not be too difficult for him to maintain his original heart. Countless black gas surrounded Bruce, and countless low murmurs came from the darkness. The eyes of the ordinary people in the Council of the Master of Time were all blurred. Thea could only reach out and shield this area. After a whole day in the outside world, the black gas began to fade. It took 3 days for it to be completely retracted into the body. Bruce slowly straightened his chest and raised his head. The spine that was injured by Bane and the hidden injuries that were left from countless battles on the streets were all gone. He was relaxed and comfortable, as if he had been reborn. Chapter 1067. After becoming a god, his entire body had been remolded. When Bruce regained consciousness, he realized that his Kevlar suit was a little uncomfortable because it was too big. After inheriting the dark divine position, his body was slimmer, and he was no longer the muscular European type. Even if his original clothes had some elasticity, it was not convenient to wear them anymore. Catwoman touched his chest, and there was a hint of regret at the corner of her mouth. To be honest, she still liked how he was full of strength before. Ignoring his fiancée's resentment, Bruce had experience with the yellow lamp. He slightly adjusted the power in his body and changed into a suit. I seem to be able to see things very far away. Is this the feeling of having supervision? Do you and Clark usually see this far at a glance? At this time, Bruce was like a research maniac who had obtained a new technological product, but this time, the subject of research was himself. Of course. Clark uses his vision, I don't. Thea felt that he was a little different from before. Is this a god? I seem to hear countless voices talking in my ears, but I can't hear them clearly. Are you guys like this usually? Bruce's personality had changed a little, and he was not as gloomy as before. Thea and Diana looked at each other. At least this was not a bad sign. However, to prevent him from indulging in power, Thea still poured cold water on him. You're far worse than me. Don't think that you're a god now. You can't beat the previous Clark. Bruce frowned slightly. His originally excited mood fell from his throat back into his stomach. If he could not beat the previous Superman, then he was not very strong. Looking at his hands, Superman's humility and respect for ordinary people automatically appeared in his mind. He now needed to learn from him, change his mindset, and adjust his mentality. He was no longer a human, but an extraordinaire. He laughed self-deprecatingly. Looks like I'm not calm enough. Thank you for your timely reminder. Thea originally wanted to give him the Omega effect directly, but she found that after fusing with the God of Darkness, Bruce had reached the limit of his rationality. It would not benefit him at all to bear this ultimate power. It was better to wait until he was more stable. Thea also saw that Bruce had a deep understanding of fear. As long as he took another step or was stimulated, he would be able to obtain the position of fear, just like how Diana obtained courage. Once he broke through a certain bottleneck, his strength would experience an explosive growth. It had to be said that he was worthy of being a main character. He found it funny when he thought about it. The Great Plains wolf had actually grasped a little bit of fear. Now, it looked like he was miles away from Bruce. He had no fate with the god of fear in this life. It was better for him to continue being an old minister. With the deity position resolved, Omega was temporarily put aside. With the matter of the cackling bats on the table, Bruce asked them if they had any suggestions. Actually, you know it yourself, right? You need to deal with it yourself. From our experience, you need to live a normal life for a few days after you go back. You need to regain control of your strength and stabilize your state of mind, Thea suggested. Bruce had no objections, and they returned to Earth together. It was rare for Diana to skip work, so she did not want to go back. Thea threw Daniel back into the dream to continue purifying the nightmare, sent Bruce back to Gotham, and went to play with Diana. Catwoman saw that he had something on his mind, so she did not talk about sharing and taking responsibility. Bruce did not need this kind of comfort, so he cleverly said that he would leave first. Walking through the alleys of Gotham, she was still thinking about how Bruce's ascension would affect her. Should she ask Thea if there were any deity positions that were suitable for her? Seeing Catwoman leave alone, Bruce walked alone on the familiar streets of Gotham with the cackling bats on his back. The most basic characteristic of the deity of darkness was invisibility. Although he did not have much control over it now, he could still use it passively. How long had it been since he walked with his feet? He felt that he had suddenly become sentimental. For so many years, he had called himself a mortal, but in fact, he had never lived like a mortal for a few days. Every day, he was like a clockwork, going up and down, constantly playing this and scheming that. What kind of mortal lived like this? Now that he had taken off his mask, perhaps he was a normal person. Without disturbing anyone, he walked into Wayne Manor. In front of his parents' grave, he had something to do. He reached out his hand and touched the cackling bat's forehead. The god of darkness mixed with his fear that he had reached the stage where he could use it freely. A dreamscape that seemed both real and illusory entered the depths of the cackling bat's mind. In that dream, the cackling bat did not kill the clown in the end, nor did he kill his close companions. Although he was in danger countless times and fell to the ground injured countless times, he persevered until the end and died of old age in his bed. The cackling bat, who had repented, finally separated from the clown's poisonous gas. He saw everything that he had done, and as expected, he committed suicide. It was suicide on a spiritual level. He had given up on his will to live. Reflected in his body in the outside world, he took his last breath. Bruce looked at all of this silently. He did not know if what he had done was right. This dark version that had the same experience as him had repented at the last moment. Unfortunately, The mistake had been made, and he could only use his own death to wash away the past and redeem his soul. Bruce took out a shovel and buried this guy in the Wayne family graveyard beside his parents, as a substitute for the normal him, and to remind himself not to take the wrong path. After a wild day outside, Damien returned home after dinner. When he saw Bruce for the first time, he was completely confused. "Who are you?" he said as he threw out a bat dart. Bruce caught it easily. Faced with his son's look of disbelief, he was helpless. He could only briefly explain. Damien was also present when he left, but he did not know if his father's change was good or bad. Damien ate dinner doubtfully. He felt that this father of his was not like his father anymore. He, who used to only drink plain water, started to drink alcohol today. All his strict eating habits were thrown out the window. He did not have any private life in the past. All day long, he wore a cape and a hood and stayed in that cave to do unknown research. Today, for the first time, he even watched television after dinner. He even cared about Damien and Raven. After chatting for 30 minutes, he walked slowly to the bat cave. "Something's wrong with my dad." Thea and Diana had gone to play. Other than God, no one could find them, let alone him. Damien could only ask Raven, his soon-to-be girlfriend. Chapter 1068. Raven hurriedly teleported over. After listening to Damien's explanation, she knew that the situation was serious. Usually, such a drastic change in temperament would only occur when a person was possessed by a demon. At least, that was what the big lowly thought. It was unrealistic to observe from the crack in the door. The bat cave was full of traps. They would be discovered before they even reached the door. Fortunately, Damien was indeed Bruce's good son. He had installed many surveillance cameras in the bat cave. They were the kind that only he knew about. He turned on a few hidden surveillance cameras. The image quickly switched to the interior of the bat cave. There was blood all over the ground. The demon summoning circle did not appear. Bruce was currently testing his blood composition. What a dark power! Raven, the Demon King Grand Princess, was very knowledgeable about dark powers. Even through the screen, she could make a rough judgment just by looking at some characteristics. After experiencing many things, the two of them were no longer the careless people they used to be. Damien quickly came up with plans 1, 2, and 3. However, these plans were based on the premise that they had to control this strange father of theirs. Raven could not. Her magic was too extreme. They had to find outside help. The few from the Bat family had all failed. Short sticks, whips, and darts did not seem to be much of a threat to the current Bruce. Now that the young mistress was nowhere to be found, it was a test of intelligence to find help. Damien immediately contacted his good friend, Little Jonathan, and asked him to contact Superman. When Superman rushed into the deepest part of the Batcave, Bruce was slightly stunned. Then, he quickly understood the cause and effect. "So, he didn't believe a single word I said. This child is too suspicious. He actually called you here." Bruce now understood what it was like to have a suspicious person by your side. He was a little depressed. Superman did not let down his guard. "Are you all right? If you feel uncomfortable, you can tell me. Clark, you are a very good friend." Bruce put down the tools beside him. This action and tone made Superman nervous. He could not help but clench his fists. He remembered that most villains would say this before they transformed. After that, they would definitely say, but, I'm really fine." Bruce's words made Superman even more vigilant. Bruce held his forehead with one hand and sighed, "How can I prove that I'm fine for you to believe me? You were there when Darkseid's divinity was divided. Why do you still have doubts? Haven't you changed?" "None at all." Superman quickly shook his head. "No, I don't feel any discomfort. It's not much different from before." "Are you saying that there's a big difference between us?" Superman neither nodded nor shook his head, but that was what he meant. "Old man, I'm really fine. If you don't believe me, I have a special handcuff in my secret compartment. Although I don't know if it's useful to me now, you can handcuff me." In the end, the situation did not turn out to be that bad. Although Superman felt that Bruce had changed greatly, he felt that this was good. His previous life of hiding was too gloomy and deformed. Now, the two of them could talk face to face like ordinary friends, sharing each other's experiences and lives without worrying that the other party would take out a piece of kryptonite from a corner and throw it at him. Superman felt that this was pretty good. How did you manage to remain calm when you have such great power? Bruce knew the answer to this question, but he still wanted to hear it from Superman. As expected, Superman's answer was the same as everyone in the Righteous Alliance knew. Family, friends, lovers, and so on. In the past, these words would be over after listening to them, but today, these words created some new changes in Bruce's ears. They were no longer general words, but a novel experience. Perhaps it was due to his unique characteristics, but the enhancement of his vision from the darkness deity position was only average, but the enhancement of his hearing was more exaggerated. He felt that as long as he wanted to, he could hear everyone's thoughts. Superman's tone was sincere, and he spoke his true thoughts. Bruce instantly understood the sacrifice after living an ordinary life. It was not easy at all. It was easy for ordinary people to do things, but Superman, including himself, had to do it carefully. They were afraid that if they used too much force, it would cause some disastrous consequences. "You're a wonderful man, Clark, and I apologize for the misunderstanding I've had," he said earnestly. This made Superman feel very embarrassed. The Bruce today was too different from his usual self, but he still accepted the apology. "Go back to your family. They can provide you with strength." Superman was now a master at talking. He gave Bruce a bellyful of chicken soup and left the Batcave gracefully. After getting Superman's assurance that their father was fine, Damian and Raven walked out carefully. "I proposed to Selina today." He felt that his son should know about this. Damian glanced at Raven. The two half-grown children were a little dizzy. Previously, the plot was about the Demon King possessing the body. How did it suddenly jump to the family ethics channel? Damian was a little regretful that Bruce did not get together with his mother, but he had no legitimate reason to object. He expressed his blessings, and the matter was settled. At midnight, the Bat family gathered again. Among a group of weirdos in tight-fitting clothes and black capes, Bruce's normal attire today was a rare sight. Like a mafia godfather, Bruce sat in the middle. When everyone arrived, his opening speech was very shocking. "I'm not going to be Batman anymore." Some of the people felt that he was too tired. Some felt that he was injured in the underworld. There were all kinds of thoughts. "All right then, I'll be Batman." Nightwing stepped forward. The Red Hood sitting alone in the corner snorted coldly, as if to express his disdain. "No, Dick, you are you. You are Nightwing. You should have your own path in life. There's no need to bear the responsibility of being Batman. If I'm the one who started this business, then it should be in my hands." Before Bruce could finish, he was interrupted. "This responsibility should be inherited by me." Damian stood up. He was already 13 years old. Now, he had shed some of his childishness. Although he was not tall, he did not look like a child. "How is that possible? You're still young." Bruce was not prepared to accept this somewhat absurd suggestion. "I can. I've been preparing for this day," Damian said in a determined tone. Originally, Bruce was prepared to end Batman's mission. However, seeing how stubborn his son was, he had to consider the possibility of such an operation.